Hello and welcome, ladies and gents. I'm hoping you can all hear us, see us, and all of the good stuff. Welcome back to No Talent. It has been quite a while since we last did one of these. I want to say probably at least about a month and a half, but it's been very busy. So we're going to talk through all of that, of what we've been up to over the last, I don't know, month and a half, I think it's been about. I think last time we did one of these was prior to the RMR, I want to say. So
Yeah.
it has been, it's been a while. But, thank you all for joining us, of course. If you're joining us on Twitch, welcome. Thank you for stopping by. Just on YouTube, hello. Of course, you can check these on both on vice versa. We do tweet them when we go live. There's no schedule when we're going to go live. We just kind of decided randomly today, as of about an hour ago, that we're going to do one of these. So why not? But before we get into all looking at the good stuff, lads, what have you been up to? Trav Kickstarters, what have you been up to?
I went to Paris for something called the Blast TV Major, and I went with the guy, as I look, who's directly below me in my camera shot. What a nice experience that was. We bunked with your mate Ben.
Yeah,
I was on the
60,
top
60.
bunk. I was on the top bunk. You were on the double bed below,
Yeah.
spooning your mate. Yeah, it was a wonderful time. Enjoyed it very much. Came back with a bit of post-land fever, as you can probably
Yeah.
hear in my voice. But other than that, it was wonderful, and we'll get into that in a moment or two. Only cast I've already done lately to sort of add to that was a little stand-in yesterday, which was the final of CCT South Europe. I think that was between Eternal Fire and Astralis, which was fun. But yeah, that is we can move on to Mr. Paladin now, I think.
What have you been up to?
Yeah, I've been doing a lot of like personal shit, but as you can see behind me, I have a little bit of a stole and a degree tube because I graduated from college last week.
Just saying the camera, the little border can't pick it up, but
Oh god damn it. Okay,
I can.
yeah.
Do you know what? I can.
There is something, a little something.
I can
there.
try it. Let me just make your camera just big, just for the time being. We just go all the way. We just see where it is. We just cover up everything. There it is. There it is. We've just completely ruined the border, so I want to fix that. But bottom left, ladies, you can see it. You can see it, ladies and gents.
But yeah, I mean that was really nice. It's nice to have like a little bit more focus on CS. I didn't come to Paris, but I did do some watch parties with Last Free Nation and Thorn and those folks, and that was always a good time. I mean, this major was pretty entertaining from a viewer's perspective. Of course, I have gripes here and there, but we'll get into all the nitty gritty in a little bit. But I mean, honestly, I'm more interested in what you guys thought of being there rather than just me talking about viewing it.
Well, do you know, we'll start with something Trav already mentioned, which was actually quite funny, which was talking about the room. So of course we got like a super budget room. I think I was working out. It was like £17 a night or something like that. Trav each. Like it was.
I'm
cheap.
amazed it was that cheap.
It was an IBIS budget, and budget was the absolute key word in that sentence. Yeah, it was funny. It was. So it was a double bed with like a bunk bed like above like where like your head is kind of thing. So I was just looking up straight up into towards kind of the bottom of Trav's bed. And yeah, man. So me and my mate Ben, C60, UKCS player, kind of retired now, but I've known him for a long time. Actually, the reason I got into commentating was commentating his game. It was the first thing I ever did. So known him for a long time. We were sharing the double. Trav was on the bunk bed above. The room itself, the beds were like, they were fine. Trav's yours was pretty decent. Like ours was like fine. It was hot as fuck in that room. We had an estimate at least 25 degrees in the room. Like that, and that is like, that's not even an over exaggeration. That's how hot it was. It
Had
was
to have the window open, yeah.
Yeah, it was hot. So we had like aircon. We turned the aircon on. It would just blow hot air out. So great start. So then yeah, we had the aircon on night one, and we went out night one. And we went and got drinks and stuff. And me and Ben were pretty drunk. Day before the start of the major or whatever. So we go and get drinks. We come back. The room is roasting, absolutely roasting. So we crack open the window. We're still like sweating anyway. And we get back into the hotel at like 3 a.m. something like that. 7:40 a.m. This guy, literally touching distance out the window, is digging up the pavement, and it was a brutal start. It was a brutal start. We went from having 3 hours sleep going in towards those quarterfinals, but for the most part, it was fine. The room did its job. We weren't really there for the room anyway, so but it was good. I mean, the major itself was very good. I mean, we had category 1 tickets, which are on the floor. Very, very good seats. You could see everything very nicely, but also you kind of got the surround sound of the crowd, which is pretty cool as well. Like you were like really immersed in it. Obviously, got very good view of the screen, looking straight ahead. Yeah, it was good. Also, I mean, with Cat One as well, we got access to this thing called the Pit, which was like this lounge, which had 10 computers, like old school big computers, like the fat backs, to play 1.5, which is pretty cool. So first time I've never played anything like 1.6 Source, 1.5. I've never played any of them. So first time for me. I was low key a little bit cracked as well. Played that, and it was like we got free drinks obviously because the event was sponsored by Ballantines, Jameson, and Absolute Vodka. So yeah, I mean they're all under the same company, but yeah, those 3 different types of alcohol were there. So we got free drinks, which was quite nice. And yeah, it was good. There was pros
free
kicking
crisps.
around. Yeah, free crisps, free donuts for me as well. I was loving life. We were taking them in. It became a regular thing of like Trav would get some crisps, I would get a cup of tea and a donut, and we take it into the arena, and it was like just pretty good. Like you get like some snacks while you're chilling there. At day 1 as well, when we were there, we didn't realize about this pit thing. We didn't actually go in. We got given the wristband to go in, and we didn't go. So me and Ben were spending, it was £10 each for a pint, which is like incredibly expensive. Like even for Paris standards, that's expensive. But yeah, the pit was cool. It had like the players were there. It was like Get Right kicking around. Some of the ITB boys were in there. We saw quite a few people, and of course casters as well. So like got to meet Machine, Scrawny, Henry G, like people that I've never met before, but obviously kind of idolized in a way in terms of his career. So it was cool. Got to have a conversation with people that I never thought I'd have a conversation with unless I'd worked with them. And it was a good little melting pot of like fans, but then ex-pros, commentators, the whole lot. So yeah, I don't know about you, Chap. I think that was actually one of the highlights of the whole thing. It was really good.
I actually agree with you. I mean, that's just such a really like chill place to be and go to, especially like because there are some like portions of the match where you don't need to experience the crowd, right? You
Exactly.
want to be in the crowd most of the time, especially for the Vitality games, because the experience for that was unbelievable.
Sure.
But like there are certain more downtime moments, especially in between the matches, where you want to have a bit more of a chill and have a sit down. Yeah, and just the fact that you could go in there and just see all those like very well known faces kicking around was kind of crazy in sort of that sense, I guess. And also, it, as you say about the first day, I don't think people really understood what it was. As you say, right now,
even the second day was empty, right? No one actually.
Yeah,
knew
the majority, no one really sort of gave it a chance. That's why, and then sort of a couple of days after, the 3rd and the 4th day, the word got around and everyone realized how cool it was to sort of be in there, and the queues are really long. So, yeah, it's really cool. Great experience. I'd say I think to sort of sum up my experience of Paris as a whole is that I think obviously me and Neo went to see the Arc de Triomphe from the Eiffel Tower. We had to do the obvious thing on the final day just to give it a quick glance.
The
It was fun. It was
across
pretty.
the roundabout.
Exactly. Yeah, the death run. Yeah, how we didn't die is a mystery.
For
we'll have to solve
context,
one day.
and the Arc de Triomphe, it's a roundabout, right? But like it is like a fucking 6-lane, but there's no lanes. It's actual chaos.
Right,
I would not be surprised if there's crashes there daily. Like it is just manic, and you can pay like €1 to walk this nice thing underneath, or you can just bomb it across the road. So we just were like, oh fuck it, like let's
save €2.
Yeah, let's just bomb it. So like it was me, Trav, Ben, Cody as well. Cody Cast was there, and some of his mates. So his brother and his mate were there. A very decent group of us. Also, we met a guy while we were there who I spoke to just prior to the major because he asked to buy my tickets, but I'd already sold them. A guy called Harry, super lovely dude. Met him, and then on like day 2, I think it was. So basically, they give you these wristbands. There's 2 sessions. It's like 2 p.m. until like 6 p.m. or something, and then 6 p.m. onwards, basically something along those lines. And you get one of the 2 sessions. So that day I already got a session 2 wristbands. I couldn't go in when we first got there for like the semi-final, I think it was, and I wanted to go and get a cup of tea. So he had said that he had one. So I was like, oh mate, can I borrow your wristband, like, and just go and get it? And then basically when I got in there, I could get access all areas. Like I show my influencer badge. Basically I got like an influencer badge for working the RMR, so it let me just like do whatever. And I could go and get these like access all areas bands. So I was like, oh, I'll get you one of these. That means you can go in whenever you want. You can go wherever you want as well. It was very good for like, it was a good trade basically, just to borrow it. So I go and get it, go in, and I saw he was sitting on his own. I was like, oh mate, like just come join us. And he stuck with us. He became part of the group, but he was a super nice guy. And yeah, so he really loved it. He like soaked it in. He like wants to work in esports, so he was networking like a madman.
We adopted him.
Yeah,
we adopted him.
Part of the group.
All good.
Lovely guy.
Yeah.
Lovely guy. But yeah, no, it was good. It was good. I mean, Arc de Triomphe, all that stuff was nice as well. I've kind of seen it before, but it's worth seeing while you're there. On the finals day, or it started later anyway, so it was worth going to do. And that more or less sums up. And then the Eurostar was super easy. 2 hours.
Eurostar's so nice.
35 quid
very
each way. Like, I think Ben, it was more expensive for him to get a train from home to London than it was to go from London to Paris. So that says it all. Super cheap, really easy. Path controls like lightning fast, like 10 minutes. Like, it's so quick. And yeah. And then that was it. That was Paris. But I think overall it was really good. I mean, obviously we can kind of talk about like just the majors as a whole in terms of the games. But I think, in my opinion, from just like a kind of in an experience in terms of being there was top notch. I really enjoyed actually being in the arena. The games themselves, obviously, having the likes of kind of those just level of teams towards the playoffs. Obviously, everyone's talked about seeding, and of course we can probably get to that in a bit. But just on raw experience alone, I loved it. I'd actually even probably say I preferred it. Well, I definitely would say I preferred it to Stockholm. It was in comparison, yeah, it was.
I think I can compare it to Cologne. I think is the only thing I can really compare it to events I've been into in the past. And I would say that Cologne obviously is still the industry leader. I think, and in terms of arena experience and how full it can be and how amazing the Lanxess is. But this, I will genuinely be honest, especially when it was full, like the arena, like when it just the banks around the edge of the arena was so beautiful.
And it wasn't just Vitality games as well.
Exactly. Like I think really this arena, especially as it was so packed, and I think obviously it was going to be packed because everyone knew it was the last CSGO major, and that's why everyone wanted to come. But still, I would say it wasn't that far off a Cologne experience. I'm absolutely willing to say that, and that's incredibly high praise. So, I think Neo, when you experience the Cologne in the future, maybe you can judge a bit more with that. But
if I can snag a better ticket.
Yeah, it's gonna be really interesting to see how it compares this year, especially. But I would say maybe barely even 5-10% off Cologne. Like, it was really, really good.
Yeah, I saw a lot of people as well talking. I mean, I guess mainly from online saying the crowd wasn't that good, but from being there in person, it was unreal. Yeah. Like, it was unbelievable. Like, way better than what was in Stockholm. And that's not like Stockholm was pretty good. Like, obviously it was like that was the first major back from COVID. So a lot of people went to that as well in the same mindset of being like, oh, this is we haven't had CS in person for like a year and a half, 2 years at this point. This is sick. But yeah, I thought it was unbelievable. Even when when Game Elite were playing, all the Vitality guys got behind Kios, and that was sick. Like, the noise was good throughout. Vitality are playing or not, Apex or Liquid, mid as fuck game. No one gives a shit about that game. And even then, the crowd was good. I mean, granted, we didn't spend that much time watching that one because snooze fest. But we enjoyed our time.
Poor Paladin. Paladin's face.
Yeah, enjoyed our time in the lounge. But even then, for those sort of games, or like was it Monty Gamer Legion, which let's be honest, Monty don't have any fans, and Gamer Legion barely have any. And even then, the noise was good. So I got to give it credit. I think
they gained fans. Monty gained fans, and Gamer Legion did too. More than Monty, I think. I think lots of people are on board with Gamer Legion. I have no doubt. But yeah, Paladin. Now Neo's had to fix something, so I get to take control for one split second. I want to know your thoughts from being at home.
Oh wait, wrong way.
Yes, the Gamer Legion flag. There you go. We flung that Gamer Legion flag around a little bit. We also got free jerseys thrown out.
Yeah, we got one of each.
We got one of each. I got like the black. It's behind me. Let me see if I can.
Yeah, mine's in the wash. Mine, I wore it under.
Probably won't be able to see
double laid in its tank. So
it's just the bottom of it there. So that's like white, purple, pink, and black.
I actually like that combo a little bit more. I mean, it feels. A little bit
I actually really like the white one. I really like the white one, but I do like my version.
Okay, yeah, I guess now I could probably get into my thoughts as a viewer, and I'll agree. I mean, all that I've seen from people that went there really enjoyed it. They all I've seen raving reviews from everybody. Yeah, that's the.
After seeing him in person as well, this one I would say is probably the best. I'm pretty sure Trav would agree. I think Ben's was the worst. The white and pink one was bad. Yours was like second best. I think it was one of
mine's second best. Yeah.
But
if I could have nabbed a white one as well, because originally I was given a white one, but it was a large, so I asked to swap, and then I got that one instead. So if I wanted to be cheeky, I probably could have nabbed a small of that one as well, but I decided to be nice. So.
Yeah, and they were giving us them for free. So
exactly. Anyway, Paladin, go ahead.
But yeah, I mean, I think everybody in person, it looked great. I mean, Neo, you were sending me videos constantly, and I was able to see like what was going on in the arena, and every time I I opened those videos, and I have to go down to like one volume to hear it at a normal volume
It was
because
loud.
it was peaking like a motherfucker. But I mean, that's great. It's awesome to see that. And I know, I mean, as a viewer, I didn't get to have the same experience in terms of even just like the hype and the volume was not as high. And I did see like the Blast producers go onto Twitter and say that they weren't able to have their ideal microphone setup as they did in places like Portugal and places like Copenhagen,
Mhm.
and so they couldn't get the exact volume that they usually are known for having. Which, yeah, like when you watch Royal Arena events, when you watch the Lisbon event, like you know that you're gonna get some really quality like crowd reactions, and that's
Yeah.
like half the fun when you watch those events. But I mean, it wasn't the worst thing in the world. Like the fact is that like they had so much energy throughout the entire event. Even though there were some conversations about the whole radar thing, the X-ray thing, I think Blast handled that very well by giving the warning, and I mean I think all of the people in the audience responded accordingly. I think moving forward that should be like an industry standard where if things get bad, you take away X-ray. If things get even worse, you take away the radar, and
Mhm.
people will learn that. I mean, it's a very different experience to watch the game with no radar and with no X-ray, and it does detract the level of viewing experience a little bit. So people understand that it's a privilege to be in the audience, and I think that was really nice that they acknowledged that, the Blast acknowledged that. I hope ESL follows suit. I hope PGL follows suit
Mhm.
because I mean we've had that conversation with the Copenhagen crowd before, where they were honestly probably one of the crowds that cheated the most out
Yeah,
of all
100%.
the crowds in
With
esports.
the Astralis, especially
So
way back. Remember them? They were
yeah, so
terrible.
and so if PGL can take that mindset going into the first CS2 major, that'd be really awesome. Because I think that the Royal Arena crowd is really good in terms of energy, but if you can kind of scale back the level of cheating that they do, or kind of help that they provide, that would be really, really
Yeah,
nice.
I also respect the French crowd as well. I'm sure it's something that Neo wants to put forth as well in confirmation of this. Is that a lot of the Vitality fans? I'm talking a lot of them. It was like a tennis match that when someone was about to serve, they would be shushing
Yeah,
their
yeah,
own
yeah.
fans and shushing other fans as well to say, don't shout when it's a clutch situation. Don't go oh when someone's just behind a wall with X-ray on and stuff like that. So they were very fair, which is good to see.
It's one of those things like I think when you're there, like if, especially day one, you can't really help yourself like whoa, like when like
Yeah, yeah,
when
yeah.
they're about, and then when it like first happened, like it happened a couple of times in Vitality's quarterfinal, whoa, and then like obviously they get a kill and like, hey, like and it's just like a little kind of classic crowd thing. People do it all the time, right? But what would happen is obviously they turn the X-ray off. Fair enough, and I can kind of understand that anyway. In the semi-final, I think it was, they Vitality. They didn't have it on, but occasionally they would be like, "Whoa." No, it was actually their quarterfinal. No, and they were
Yeah.
like, "Whoa," and then do that, and then Banks came on at half time. Was like, "Oh, by the way, like, don't do this because if you do, we're gonna turn the radar off because like we don't want you to do this." And then literally for the rest of the tournament, every time something would happen, they'd shush. Yeah, so like I would say as like I saw a lot of things saying like the Golden Hornets were like really bad at cheating. From being there in person, it was quite literally the opposite. They were like super from their one warning, which granted, like I think everybody would get a warning anyway.
Yeah.
They instantly were like the whole rest of the tournament shushing the whole time. Whenever there's like something about to happen, they go silent, kind of thing. So like yeah, like, I think like as crowds go, they were definitely the most respectful. They listened like immediately. There was no second warning. I think most of the crowds, Rio definitely needed fucking a million warnings. The Danish people don't give a shit. They wouldn't. It was in England. They would ignore you. They don't give a shit either. So,
Yeah.
so yeah, I think I just think the Golden Hornets are just excellent. Like as a fan base, they came in their
Yeah.
numbers. Obviously, the trumpet guy has gone kind of mega viral now as well. Like he was loving life. That was
He was awesome.
amazing
Yeah. He
in
was
the
awesome.
arena as well. It obviously sounded good on stream, but like
Mhm.
in the arena, it was like a different thing. Like you should be like me and Trevor in a conversation and you hear it in the say like, here we go, and everyone fucking rocks, yeah. So no, but I think like I saw I saw a few people talking about how like it was like terrible cheating. It really wasn't. Like
I
having
don't think it was terrible. There are some much more worse examples of that in
100%.
esports that I don't think this was anywhere close.
Yeah, literally. Like, I saw some tweets. People were like, "Oh, like, you know, they're so scummy. Like, they're cheating." And I was like, literally, like one time, and then like they got a kill, and hey, and then like they got said, "Oh, don't do that. We'll take away the radar." Never did it again. So I think as like in the cheating allegation thing, they were absolutely one of the best we've had. Especially because like you even see a little bit of the Roaring Bears. They do it a little bit, right? They're especially a bigger player, and they don't give a shit. They won't listen. And obviously Rio didn't care. We already spoke about Denmark as well. So I think as they go, they were pretty damn respectful. But I think it's hard to make that justification online to in person because it's different in person. In person, I remember immediately being like, damn, like, you know, fair play. Like, I know for a fact if I was doing that, I would ignore them. But like if I was at a footy game or whatever, and someone came on and said that, I'd ignore them. But so yeah, great credit to them. I think they were pretty. But I know the guy. They did an interview with the guy who leads the Golden Hornets, and he seems like he's on it. He seems like he runs a tight ship. So I gotta respect him.
I guess the last 2 points I'll give as a viewer, and we can kind of transition to the actual like major itself. One is as a viewer, it was kind of disappointing to not have much content in between the games. It was really I will tell you, it was very frustrating to cut to break in a halftime and see the same Counter-Strike video.
The Launder show thing.
Or the Launder show for the 20th time.
It's Katie and celebrate. Fuck off.
The reason why it sticks out to me a little bit more with Blast is because, you know, they were the pioneers of, you know, creating unique content, creating even just narratively built content as well. And, you know, I had an excuse for them, you know, even in the Challenger stage, even in the RMR, like, hey, look, you're pouring all your money and your budget into the major itself. We'll see you guys put in that effort there. And it didn't feel like I saw that effort as a viewer. It definitely felt like as the ticket cost goes for actually attending, they put in a lot of effort for that actual experience. Because, I mean, obviously the effort that they put into the pit, obviously the stage itself, just the environment in that arena.
Oh, they also had little things before. Like I think I feel like most people have to know about it. Like they would have like a DJ set like most days before, like a proper actual. Apparently, he's really famous. Like a really famous DJ would come in and like hype the crowd out. They have like Kenny or Body or Jax. MBK, whatever, they would come in and play like 1v1s versus the crowd for like half an hour before they think show started. But these all weren't on stream. So you're spot on. Like the value of the ticket to what you got absolutely matched. I think even more. Like we were saying, like so we got like what basically unlimited drinks, right? But if you're thinking a cocktail is like 12 quid. I reckon I could have got for a ticket's price worth coming through just on that alone, and the food and whatnot. So yeah, mate, like you're absolutely spot on. Even the stuff that like was like not on stream.
Yeah, which is like, you know, it's cool, you know, but to me, right, I think we're finding that the last two majors now, it seems as though both ESL and Blast are very catering towards the audience themselves. They're really adamant about making sure that the crowd experience is the best possible experience. But I think the best way to kind of maintain your audience and get new fans in is obviously going to be the online stream of the event and what draws in the chance to actually attend the event. And so I think seeing that both of these TOs kind of scale back in their production value via the stream itself is a bit of a bummer. I mean, I'm always going to be a hardcore fan of the game, and you know, the friends that I watch CS with are the same, where it doesn't matter what the production is, it doesn't matter whether there's content or no content. We're going to watch the games regardless because we love the game. But for those new fans, for those people that want to understand, you know, why are people going crazy for Zaiwu when he enters the arena? Why does it suck that Simple can't play on the playoff stage? Why does it suck that C9 isn't even at the major? Like, you can't even have these conversations, and when they bring it up on the desk, when the casters bring it up, and you're just kind of, and you're a new fan, and speaking from experience of like watching a new esport, right, where they talk about these narratives, and you're just kind of like, who is this person? Why do we care about this person? There's always shoulder content to push that narrative, and I didn't feel like that was there for this major, and even for Rio in comparison. And so I hope that in the future, I think even PGL kind of dropped the ball too, if I think about it. Like, I think there was that one piece of content that Banks did where he got a tattoo and he like talked about his life in the UK, which is really weird out of context. But I'd like for them to return to that kind of form, because there is so much value that shoulder content like that adds.
100%.
It brings personality to your broadcast team, and it also brings in a lot of new eyes to some really cool concepts. I mean, those Valve major profiles before, I've talked about this ad nauseum for so many different podcasts, but I adored those, and those were the profiles that got me invested in the actual esports of the game and then the story of
And
the
the
game.
individuals as well, right?
Yeah,
you start to get a liking to one person. I mean, Tarek, that's where mine came
yeah.
from.
Yeah, and I think I had Neo as one of my first ones that I watched, and that one, and that one was really really awe-inspiring to just see, like, the family members and the kind of the grind set that this guy has before even that word even came to be, so I think that I would love to see just a return to form in that sense from all of these TOs. I think they can all put in a little bit more effort to broaden the horizons of these broadcasts, because
Content
I will
across.
say we're hitting all-time high peaks of like crowd experience. Like, and I feel like we're improving on it major on major, but we've got to raise the bar for the broadcast as well to match that, because I don't know. I think we could do better for sure.
Well, it was
Trophy could do better
noticeable at the
as well.
RMR. Oh, yeah. I love Blast. They hired me for the RMR. I got about them. God damn it, that trophy was not it. I hate to say. Well, actually, no. I don't think the trophy itself was inherently bad, but why was it so small? It should have been much bigger.
Should have been huge. It should have felt
yeah.
important and big.
Yeah,
You know?
it looked like an MVP trophy. That's what I felt like to me. Like one person.
Oh well, the MVP trophy was that as well. I don't know if you saw.
Oh no, I didn't.
Yeah, it was just a smaller version of that.
Of course it was.
Like, I was holding two of them like a carbon copy. It was hilarious.
Yeah.
I think I think I don't know if you guys have like ever watched the NFL, but they did this Nickelodeon
Green Bay
takeover.
Packers.
They had a
The
Nickelodeon
gunk
takeover
everywhere.
where they would have, they would put like CGI gunk on the screen.
SpongeBob running across as well.
Yeah, with like Patrick yelling and shit.
I love that. Yeah.
That's what it felt like during the tournament. Like the trophy reveal.
Goofy,
and like
yeah.
the stool was like at like knee level for some reason.
Yeah.
So they all had to like bend down, and like I don't even feel like everybody even had a hand on the trophy. It was like a finger.
I think it's impossible to. It's like this big.
Yeah, it was. God, I mean, it's just. I think someone put out a tweet of like I think he just tweeted out like all of the trophy, like the big trophies.
Yeah,
he didn't even say anything, and everybody just.
The silence was deafening, right?
I know, but. It is what it is. I do really like the fact that we're at a point in our game where the meaning of a major transcends the trophy itself, where you can see like how much it means to these players when they're lifting the trophy, and like they're on the verge of tears, and you're like, yeah, the trophy is shit, but I mean, in the grand scheme of things, it's really cool to see that the meaning of winning a major means so much to these people, and it meant so much to us too, as viewers to see them lift that trophy, regardless of how goofy it was. So I thought that at least kind of made up for it in that sense.
I gotta say that the lack of content was very noticeable at the RMR as well. I remember just obviously because we were working, game after game, it was much quicker pace than obviously the champion stage. And I remember kind of just having these conversations with some of the other guys there and just being like, oh, I feel like I've seen the same Counter-Strike where Manesi guesses himself like, a million times now. And like, it was getting to the point where I remember a lot of people talking about it. I think I didn't give him some of the last few Nation guys talking about it, and the points they were putting forward were just spot on, right? Like, okay, fair enough. If you're not doing it here, when it goes towards Legends and Challenges, and then on towards the Champion stage, you have to up it, right? But we were still getting the same ones. Like the amount of like times I saw the Launder show clip, now available on Blast TV with Cadian like being his own hype man, like. It was a kind of a bit funny at the start. I remember me and Anders laughing about it because like Katie is like hyping himself up. He's in a room on his own. He's like hyping himself up. It was kind of funny, but not after the like 93rd time. So I was quite disappointed at that, just considering as well we've always had something. I even remember Rio having fairly decent content in comparison.
Yeah, they
like,
had that lobby thing that they would do where like they would just walk around and just talk to the players. It's so simple. I mean, it felt like very no nonsense. They did it like I think the day before the major even went live. It's quick. I mean. You can even watch the entire compilation. It's like an hour long on YouTube. Yeah. And they just split that up. You have so much content to split up, and you just knock it out in an hour. You get 100%. One cameraman, one mic, you're good.
Just get like a host to walk around. Like or like also like, Jake Lucky's there. Like that's his stick, right? Just be a content man. Like that's literally his entire life. Like I know he's in the overtime show for like 3 minutes post game, but like he should get him to like kick about in the walk around the crowd and talk to. Like, one of the best bits about that major was the crowd. Like, it's free content there. Just go and chill with the Golden Hornets, or just go anywhere. There was so many like notable faces kicking out. Get Right, like I said, get there. The likes of Get Right. All the French legends were kicking about. So many commentators and analysts who won't even work in the event were there. Like Henry G, for example, right? It's such free, easy content. You can have a word with him, kind of a little conversation. Like, it's so easy. Yeah, I don't know. I think they really missed the ball on that, just because obviously we didn't really experience it in the arena. And one of the things I didn't like about the arena is we didn't have the desk. I remember in Stockholm we could hear the desk. No desk the whole time. I didn't like that. That was my one. I remember in Stockholm we had the desk, and it was good because you got the context coming in towards the game. And it was one of those things that you didn't have to actually concentrate. Like, I remember, like, there's like Thorne and Richard Lewis and whatever on the desk, but like I was still speaking with my mate and just having a conversation. It was like background noise, but I'd tune in occasionally. But yeah, no desk in the arena. It would just be like just music playing. And I think like they missed the ball because we could see them up there, like they're like top left. We could see them talking. So based on that, one thing as well, you mentioned about the crowd mics. Apparently, 2 of them broke. I was speaking to one of the broadcasters, so it's like 2 of the main ones, like they broke or they weren't working properly. Which is apparently crowd noise wasn't as good online, which probably I guess could explain that. But yeah, I think content for me, like obviously very happy to work the RMR. But for me that was the biggest thing. If I were to improve, like I was to give advice or whatever to improve, I don't think they actually had a content team, so that would make a lot of sense why. Yeah. Just hire like 2-3 people. Only thing the whole time is just be pumping out content, and even if you don't use like 40% of it, just have there in the background. I think is important. But unless you have anything else to add, should we actually start talking about the major itself?
I wanna do so. I wanna sort of integrate my little segment into getting your opinions on the teams, right? So my segment is I'm gonna do like a school report on every single one of the teams that played in the actual major itself, not the challenger stage, the actual major itself. I'm gonna go through every single one, and what you're gonna do is you're gonna pick up after I'm finished if you think there's something particularly egregious in my ranking.
Okay.
So my idea for this is that it's sort of like a report in such of I'm relating their sort of their mark to how I think they themselves should have done, and how I think the fans and all the the people in the know they think they should have done. So Furia, they lost 2 BO1s and lost to G2 in a BO3. That draw wasn't good, but they can't be going 0-3. I'm gonna give them a B-. 9, they made it. Good.
Wait, what's the lowest, by the way? A star is the top, I'm assuming. A plus is the top, and then what's the bottom? Surely B- is not the bottom.
Probably C. I'll go like maybe a C could be the last one. Maybe.
Okay.
You can do C and then you do F because you fail.
Yeah, sure. That is how it is. Yeah. Okay. So Fury get a B-. 9 get sort of like I think I'll go for an A- because to make the major alone is great. They were the best tier 2 team at the time, but I thought they'd do better than Monty and Gamer Legion. So I think they can only be disappointed with that.
I'll disagree. I'll say like I'll give them like a B- C at that point. I'm like really disappointed with what they showed, because of course it's always going to be tough to get into the BO3s and have Vertigo like guaranteed, which is the map that they love, and you wouldn't have either Nuke in the pool, you wouldn't have Overpass in the pool, and actually no, they played Overpass against Liquid, I believe, but it was like really disappointing to see that some of the players just weren't there, like in the server whatsoever, which is just such a bummer, because I think they have such an exciting system, and I was watching a lot of their demos after the major to see like what they've been up to, and there are just some insanely unique protocols that some of these top teams are copying, and the fact that there isn't a chance for us to even see them go deep at that stage was a real bummer. So that's why I have to just like put them super low. I had super high expectations.
This is the whole point. You're going to butt in and disagree with me.
I'm going to agree with that one. I'm going to disagree with one, though. I think Furia, if you're putting B in the islands, I'm putting them F. Like, this is meant to be...
Okay, fair enough.
This is meant to be a top 10 team in the world with, and I'll happily say it, the best rifler in the world. And they've gone 0-3. There's no excuse. I think it's an F. But at the same time, I think it's I think they've got to make a lot of changes. So I don't think like this. I don't think the they've got to be looking towards Pain and whatever and picking up some of their guys. I think they're in desperate need of changes. So there's two ways of looking at it, right? There's like I think Fury are massively underperformed. I mean, the fact that you've got teams like, if you just go up the list, right, you got like 9, Into the Breach, Apex, Game Legion, Monty, all finishing above them. Never should happen in my book. So I'm gonna put like F for them.
For me, right, this team, I just wanted to interject quickly, but basically, they've exhausted all their options at this point. Like, changes have to happen, right?
Yeah.
They at the Americas Armor, they decided to adapt a little bit more of a European style. Super cool. You know, you can retain the same 5-man lineup, but you have a very different twist to it, where you play standard CS, you rely on the firepower of Kesarda and Yuri to just anchor down bomb sites, and it didn't work beyond the Americas Armor. It looked really cool in the Americas Armor, but granted, worse competition. Yeah. And as soon as they came here, they didn't play any online tournaments prior. They had Rio before, but I feel like it's a bit of a bogey cup where you don't necessarily have the best teams. A lot of the teams didn't really care when they were there. So even that best of 3 win against FaZe doesn't really count in my book. And basically, I feel like this Paris Major was just a huge, like, screw you to Art as a whole. Like, I think his IGL style is, he's tried to adapt to a different style.
He changed it, and he shouldn't have changed it. Like, honestly, if they kept with their aggressive style, I reckon they may even make it to playoffs. But
now you have a predicament, right? Like, do you want to drop and add in another rifler? I don't think that's a good idea. I would personally just like to drop Art at this point, and potentially pick up. I mean, look, if Big Uzera is willing to go to Furia, that'd be great. But yeah, that is the player that I am most interested in PKL, the former IGL of Pain.
He's the free agent, though, right? He just
he is. I believe
benched or whatever, but he's not in the team, right? I'm kept up to date to him individually.
Yeah. And so I think that, I mean, obviously, I think Pain looks strategically better with Big Uzera, funnily enough. Like, I think that guy has been calling around himself very, very well. But at the same time, the foundation of Pain was so solid from the get-go, and I think that had a lot to do with PKL. So I think if he could bring some foundational, success for this squad, I think that they can definitely do very well, because they've got the firepower to do it. I think Safe has shown enough confidence to me as an opper to adapt to this playstyle that I think he can play in any sort of playstyle at this point. I think Yuri and Kesart have obviously been fine. I honestly don't have any issues with Drop, to be completely honest with you. I think he has some pressure issues, but I think that he does his job as an anchor pretty well.
I think he gets a lot of the negativity put on him, when realistically he's playing an anchor rotate player. He's never really given a fair shot.
Numbers for that.
Yeah, exactly. He's not meant to get numbers, but at the same time, I agree. I think he definitely is very fallible to pressure. You've kind of seen it quite a few times, but I feel like I think we can all agree, and I think everyone in the world now is starting to agree, the main person is Art. Also, Art doesn't help himself when he constantly is calling analysts idiots as well. Like, you're just gonna have everybody in your back. The same thing happened to EG when you got that moron GamerDoc calling step out the echo chamber. Then you're a target. Then it's okay, every time you fuck up, we're gonna at you because it's funny. More than often, and same thing happens to Art now. Every time Art loses, you're looking it was Yanko he called an idiot, right? He's just gonna be like, wow, Yanko's just gonna put little smiley face and just laugh, little chuckle to himself. It's like, told you. So he doesn't help himself in my eyes. I obviously they've got every right to talk, but most of the talking should be done in the server, not on Twitter.
Yeah, agreed. So I'll go to the 1-3 teams now, and I'll list my 3 rankings, and you can discuss them. So BNE, just a regular B, I think, for me. They want to be a team that I think can make playoffs at one of these majors one day, but realistically, in my eyes, they're only going to be a team that can make one big upset, as they did, and then probably not do much else at majors. They reached their goal, they completed it. Ents, big failure. I think they were going to be a playoff team in my eyes. They looked really, really good in the challenger stage, and then they just absolutely lost it. They lost convincingly to teams like ITB, especially they gave ITB vertigo, which is just something you shouldn't do. And I'll let you get onto that in a second. And of course, the big one, G2. I think I'm going to have to take a leaf out of your book, Neo, and give Furia and G2 an F, because this is the biggest failure and the biggest upset probably in recent history. They were the best team in the world, even though they weren't ranked that way. They were winning all the big S tier events before the major, obviously apart from Rio. But for them not to even make playoffs is a ridiculous result, and it should not be happening.
I'll start
I-
with B&E. Fully agree.
Yeah.
I don't think they're a Champions level team. I honestly feel like at the moment, they're a side who would actually benefit from changes. They just can't, because who are they going to pick up? I personally don't think Senary's good enough in that team. I think he
Agreed.
really falls flat a lot.
Agree.
I think GXX is good, but he's really inconsistent, which is problematic. And I think there's too reliant on Juan Flacho. If Juan Flacho's a slow game, they're done. So I think they're a team that would benefit from it, but it's never going to happen, because who else are they going to pick up? I mean, so for me, I think B's fine. Them even being in this conversation is good. Ends, I wouldn't fully agree with them being a complete fuck up. I know, obviously, the losses towards ITB are bad, and maybe even the loss towards NIP, right? But then at the same time,
The one against Nip was crazy because
Yeah.
I mean, I'd quickly touch upon. I mean, they played Mirage and they played Ancient. These are two maps where this just works so well for Snappy, and like I
Yeah.
feel like he calls circles around players and inexperienced teams. And Nip have been nothing but just downright average in my
And
like,
Madden was
final.
so good. Madden was so good in the whole major. He'd really had
Which
a
is
huge
rare.
upturn in form, and
He
then in the
sucks.
NIP game, he was absolutely absent. It was crazy. Just a complete disappearance.
I have to say though, so this end side are so reliant on Nerds playing well, and I don't think, from my understanding, I don't think Nerds pracked with these guys properly. I don't think he went to boot camp, because he got brought on as the closed qualifiers were starting, or the open qualifiers were starting maybe. So he had a week and a half to really get the contract signed. Well, have the contract signed and then fly out. I don't think he's had a lot of time to work with him. So the only reason for me that I'm not like shitting on ends that much. Well, I do think they definitely underperformed. I don't think it's a complete catastrophic failure, because they're so reliant on Nerds playing well, and he has not had time at all to learn any sort of setups. You could even see at the RMR, they go 0-2, but when they made it through the RMR, it was all basically just Nerds just free roaming. He wasn't playing any sort of system there. So for me, that's the only thing. I don't think Nerds had any time, or very little time, to learn any systems. Definitely not 7 maps worth of systems on the Snappy's calling. And he has some pretty complex systems. Him and Saw cook up some pretty decent stuff. So for me, that's the only reason why I don't personally think it's a complete catastrophic failure. Every other team here had so much time to work, barring maybe the likes of Into the Breach, because their team wasn't built actually that long ago. But aside from that, every other team had loads of time. I don't think Ents did with their main guy. It's the same way, like,
fair.
if you got Nico and just dropped him into phase and they didn't perform well, and be like, well,
So-
yeah, he's fucked
So
it.
not a failure, more like a B minus.
I would say,
B.
yeah, like a B minus. I don't think, like, if you'd asked me after the RMR, when they've just brought in a new guy, do you expect the team to go to challenge champions? No, they've just got 0-2 at the RMR, no chance. Like, I think this is on par. Like, when they were against good teams in the RMR, they didn't play well. When they went 0-2 and they played all the way up, no offense to the teams, but they were just shitting on shitters, so it wasn't really a big deal.
I mean, their challenger stage run was pretty legit. They beat OG, they manhandled NIP, and then they beat FaZe in that 2-0.
Yeah, the FaZe one was
category.
big.
So
Yeah.
I thought that after that FaZe win, they would go all the way. They'd go to the playoffs and they'd start competing. They looked mighty good on that nuke, especially. I mean, it was really sick to see. So to just lose in the rematch was really disappointing, and that's kind of why. Like, I think it would have been tough to actually make it to the playoffs down 1-2 because
Yeah,
or
true.
into 2-2 because of the matchups that were available. But regardless, I just expected more from them in the legend stage.
It
As
feels
far
like
as
the
G2
honeymoon
is
period.
concerned-
That's where I kind of think about it. Like, I think there's a little honeymoon period in the RMR and the LCQ all coming through, and then on the LCQ, like when they went 0-2, and then the kind of the challenger stage. I think they used up their honeymoon period very quickly. But I think they're a good team for the future. But I'm not shitting on them now for not performing well when they just brought in a
Okay.
guy, like, I'm talking weeks, not even months, weeks before the major, who is actually the main guy who's meant to do well for this team. So that's really thing. I still think they underperformed. They could have done better, especially some of the tier 2 teams who have obviously overperformed. But I don't think it's a complete failure. If you talk like they brought this guy in 3
So-
weeks before the
so-
major.
So do you think G2 is a complete failure then?
100%, 100.
Oh,
This
yeah.
is on paper. Well, I shouldn't technically not on paper, but on the eye test, the best team in the world, who
That's
go
what I
1-3.
said, yeah.
Never should happen. Never should happen.
Oh man, I mean that best of 3 against Fnatic, that Vertigo map.
Brutal.
And first of all, I mean I know a number of analysts have discussed this, but that third map should never be Vertigo. It should always be Nuke. I mean,
Yep.
if you think that you are so terrified of Fnatic's nuke because you lost to them at EPL, which is all the way back in February, there is
That was a
something
freak
wrong.
result.
There's
Exactly.
something wrong with your mentality as a roster that you don't believe that you can win in that pressure scenario. Sure, you can talk about the rest of the veto. It should never be even going to that third map. But even in that scenario, if you have nuke in the chamber, you as a team have the confidence to say, this is our home map. We are one of the best
Yeah.
teams in the world, if not the best team in the world on this map. We should be able to win it 9 times out of 10, especially against a Fnatic roster that should have no business being in this part of the tournament whatsoever. So I think, and you could just see like on their CT sides on Vertigo, it just felt like completely flat, where you would have disjointed A ramp setups, or you'd have Modesty playing sandbags, and then you'd have a rifle playing on Crane. But as soon as Modesty goes down, the Crane player doesn't actually have a
Swing.
setup to swing, or vice versa, where the Crane player is taking first contact and then Modesty swing. No sort of third player to have a flash to throw on side hall, no flash from default or anything. And that alone was just abused again and again and again. And you just had Fnatic. I mean, they weren't even playing the smartest CS. They were just going up ramp every single round on that T side. And they just
The
overran
Cypher
them.
way. The Cypher way of
Well,
life.
Yeah, and
Messi was the same person Cypher was a few years ago. He was a hero rifler playing on UK teams. Don't play against UK players on Vertigo. I know that like so many teams are still struggling to learn this, but like ITB, did they play Nip on it like yesterday? It fucked them over. Like, don't play against UK teams on Vertigo. It's the only map that we have like a little home ground on, which like for some reason we're like unstoppable on. And Messi proving he had a really good series overall as well.
Yeah, and I don't know that series. Look, I mean, the Vitality game was close. I mean, Zaiwu had some crazy heroics. That happens. It happens. It's a tough BO1. And the BNE one, look, they're due for an upset. It's fine. But I think the Fnatic result is what spoils this entire major run.
Yeah, and in that case, I'll actually pick you up on Fnatic as a whole. Then I'll move on to the 2-3 teams, and if you're happy to do so.
Yeah.
So I would say Fnatic in my case. I think the issue I have with Fnatic and their run in the whole major, like from the RMR to the major itself, is that every single game that they won, apart from the G2 one, was expected. They got incredibly easy draws, I felt like, overall, and the teams they lost, they had a chance to play to make the playoffs. Monty and Gamer Legion, they both lost to. They could have easily been in the playoffs. They were the favourite in those two games, but in my opinion, they have dropped off quite considerably from their form, which I thought a few months ago at the beginning of the year, maybe sort of even a quarter way through the year, was at the state of being the tier 2 gatekeeper team. They were always at the top and they could beat a tier 1 team, but they would always beat the tier 2. This time it was not the case. The winning against G2 was unbelievable, sure, but they should not in a million years, even though we know how good ITB have been at this major, they should not be losing to ITB. That's just a fact of the matter.
And
for a
going
team
to
like
Vertigo
Fnatic.
against Cypher.
And going to
and they
went
just
to
got
Vertigo there as
battered.
well.
Absolutely bad. Was it 16-4 or something? They got absolutely handled. So
16-4 on Vertigo. You're absolutely right. Yeah.
Handled. So like, yeah.
I think that's just a lot of wrong decisions, and I think a roster that needs to like have a big refresher. I think they need some young blood. I said this for a while. Like, I think Roy can still do it. I think Crims can still do it. I even think that Fascia in more preferred roles can still do it.
Really?
It's just that all those three together, I think you need to replace one, maybe even replace two, and get some of these young stars that have been talked about that we've seen at the major. I mean, I don't think it's going to happen. I'm just obviously going to shoot the shit with names like Boris and Cypher. I don't think that's going to happen. But it's that sort of a player which you need to find.
Well, a more
to
realistic
give Fnatic
one.
a bit more blood.
Flames. He's out of the contract.
Yes.
He's going to have to pay a buyout.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, like for
call.
me, I think I personally just don't think Fash is it. I just don't think he can keep up in tier 1. In tier 2, he was an animal. He was a fiend, but I just don't think he's got it in tier 1. I mean, we've kind of seen this now. I mean, right, this has been quite consistent struggles coming through from Fash where it's becoming problematic. I know in that last game, another game against G2 as well, underperformed. ITB more of the same as well. I think that was kind of the story from this major. Roy has his moments, but he is meant to be. But the way this team was set up, obviously originally Messi was the kind of the hero rifler. That's what he's been his whole career. Then he moved to IGLing, but it's still so consistently Messi doing all the fragging. Obviously, you know, there's a lot of the calling around himself, but he needs support. It can't be constantly just Messi. I think Nikodor's quite criminally underperforms quite a lot as well. I mean, I don't think he is. He is definitely in there with the fraud allegations quite consistently because he underperforms massively to what should be a tier 1 standard AWPer. Granted, that's been the question for a lot of people, but the fact that AWPers are probably the easiest thing to find in tier 2 right now, there's so many of them. Fnatic let one of the best ones go, moronically. You know, they're now feeling these pressures, right? I feel like Nikolas is not performing the way he should do. Fash is not. I don't think Nikolas is the immediate change. I think they can maybe kind of continue with him, but for me, I don't think Crims should go. I'm dead set on Crims should stay. I think Crims is the foundations to this team. I think he's the only consistent factor about this team in terms of just like what he's meant to do in terms of his role. I think Mezzi's obviously really good. His performances are unbelievable. So for me, the two lock-ins are Mezzi and Crims. Can't touch them. They're untouchable. They are literally Crims is the face of the organization, been there forever, and Mezzi, the UK boy, is what kind of keeps him. He's the glue, and Crims is the foundations. But everybody else, I think, has definitely a strong room to be changed by someone better. Flames is a great example, who's now coming into free agency round the corner, and I would honestly bet a lot of money that teams like Fnatic are looking at him and talking to him because they know they need a change.
So would you say for Fnatic's ranking, would you say B- or just a regular B? Because the G2 win wants me to give them a B, but I feel like that was just a flash in the pan, and I think the matches that they had to make playoffs that they failed at, that kind of indicates a B- to me.
Well, look at the teams they lost to. That's the big thing for me, right?
Yeah.
You're losing to granted they did well at the major itself, but even still, Monty Game Legion, ITB. You just look at those on paper, they should never lose to any of those teams. And this is the thing now where we're actually seeing this Fnatic side. They're good. Even when they lose, they still play good against teams that they know, right? They're very tier 1 opponents they play on a regular basis. They know how to play against them. Granted, they don't always win, but at the very least, they're not getting blown out, right? But you see this now against some of these tier 2 teams who do stuff different. They're getting just stomped, right? We saw it against ITB, right? On Vertigo, they just weren't ready for that level of pace. You don't see it in tier 1. You don't see that level of aggression, that much, Cypher, that dedication to entering a ramp round after round, that kind of selflessness for the team in a way. They don't know how to adapt on the fly. And I think for me that warrants B-.
Yeah, for me, I think there are a number of things that you could do to Fnatic. I think Mezzi should not be having a call anymore. I think that you should drop Fasher, get an IGL. I mean, if you want, you can drop Nico. You can pick up a better AWPer, and get Mezzi back into some fragging roles, because that's where I think this guy shines the most. I mean, he's very cerebral. He can mid-round call around himself very well. But, I mean, you can just look at the map pool that this team has. It's non-existent. It doesn't exist. There's no map that... Beyond Overpass, I don't feel confident in any other Fnatic map in the pool. I'm not saying something. I mean, beyond that, though, I think Roy does very well in his role. I think Crims does very well in his role to get up a clutch here and there in those dying stages. And I think you need an experienced player like that. So I think Mezzi, Roy, and Crims, even though it's a pretty old core, I think that
they do the job.
Their experience should be able to get the job done. And yeah, I think you guys are spot on. Get some young blood, young AWPer and Nikolas, and get a younger entry maybe from Frasher, and I think you're cooking with gas.
So I'm going to give you a name, and I'm going to give you a ranking, and I'm going to say, for one reason and one reason alone, Na'Vi, C, because of their capitulation against Monty. This is absolutely unforgivable. Discuss.
My goat, Warrow. He put it in writing back in that Kingwin. What was it? Was it Kingwin Legends where they beat their fucking charity tournament, which says everything.
Yeah.
But it shows the ego of those two. But at the same time,
they've been on the same team.
Same team, literally, and they won.
Yeah.
Like that's the best part. They won, played in the same team, both played well as well. None of them bottom fragged, and still they're actually just throats. Says it all. I love that result just because Warrow put it in writing and it came back when it mattered most. Simple, you want one more major before CS:GO ends? No sir, not a chance. So yeah, but I think C's adequate. But at the same time, I think C's adequate. But I think at the same time though, is it adequate because they are playing 4 versus 5. MPL is still and will never be at this rate tier 1 ready. Unless he has some drastic change.
He had a couple of really good games. I don't know.
Oh, the RMR doesn't matter.
He looks slight.
Yeah.
Okay.
No. I remember people at the RMR like, oh my god, he's like the highest rated player in Group A, even higher than Cypher. He's sick. No, he's not. Like, he actually just isn't tier 1 ready. Like, credit to the guy. He gave it a good go. But Na'Vi they're in the shit now. Like, they're actually in serious trouble. Like, they've got apparently the rumors be Blade leaving as well, which I think actually is not a bad call. I wouldn't be surprised if Blade goes to Cloud9. I think they need to move Groove from Cloud9 to GM. I think they need to put Blade in towards coach, and then we're cooking there. I don't, they don't need to change Nafany yet. Let's just see what Blade can do with that team and see how things go. But if Na'Vi stick with this thing about obviously only getting Ukrainian guys on board, they are fucked. Like there's no talent.
Yeah, it's a sinking ship because you got to look at Spirit Academy, and they've got probably the best Ukrainians left in the scene right now. Yeah. And they're gonna probably get moved up to the main roster at this point.
Play Pro League.
You're not gonna be able to, you're not going to be able to touch those players with the amount of buyouts that Spirit's going to provide, and rightfully so. They're great players. But obviously none of these Monty players are going to move because they just beat your ass. So I mean, it's not going to happen. I mean, that nuke map though, that was just embarrassing from Na'Vi. I mean, I've just never seen a T side that weak in so long from Na'Vi. I mean, you think about like Na'Vi rosters before, like you think about them at Stockholm, you think about them at Cologne, where they were just unstoppable on nuke. I mean, Simple was just taking matters into his own hands. You would have these aggressive plays outside where they would just have Electronic just spill out onto the warehouse and just kill 3 players and just win outright. Not possible. It just looks like
SDY knew everything. SDY knew what they want to do, and he counted every single thing they wanted to do.
And
SDY got his revenge. My goat.
It's just so disappointing to me to see them just capitulate like that. Because then when they play FaZe, it's like they showed a good enough fight, and I think they had a chance to close the series out on Anubis, but they choked and FaZe like drew it back. I couldn't actually catch all of that game because it was at 3 in the morning.
Final map was amazing.
But it was a great map, and again, that's the clutchability of FaZe. You lose those BO3s, you've always had a tough time against FaZe and BO3s. It happens, I'm not gonna, count that against them. It's that Monty result that's just so egregious.
And 16-2. Oh my god, I love it.
So we're in agreement on C then, are we?
Yeah. I don't think it's a complete fail, just because I just don't think MPL is tier 1 ready, so they are playing with only 4 players.
But they're a playoff team, right?
I think
they're always a playoff team.
For Na'Vi specifically as an org, I think it's a C, right?
And they've been in every major as well, right? And the final one, not made champions.
I think the last time, I don't know the exact year, but I think like 2019 was the last time they failed to make a playoffs or something ridiculous like that. So it's been a really, really, really long time.
Best Simple's regretting not going to G2 when Carlos came knocking. Oh my god. My god.
I'm gonna throw a little curveball on the next one. Get through this pretty quickly because I haven't actually got much time. We've got a few more things to talk about. So for NIP, I'm actually gonna give them a bit of a higher rank than I think I should have. The loss to Apex to in the qualification match to make playoffs 2-0. That was just a great win for Apex, and obviously they backed that up against Liquid. But I think they did better than I thought they were going to, and I actually want to give them more of a B+ because I thought they were going to bomb out. I did not have any confidence in them at all, and they managed to beat obviously seemingly a pretty poor Furia. But the win against Ents was very good, considering Ents kind of owned them last time they played against them. So I thought they did quite a lot better than I expected. And maybe they have a foundation to build off on now because they got closer than I thought they would.
Yeah.
It looked like they finally had potential. I mean, that was the NIP roster in EPL where I felt like this team is dead on arrival. But, I mean, every single player, including Broland, mind you, showed that they have what it takes to kind of be an explosive roster. You could see that on Mirage is what they started leaning to the most. Alexi B had comfort in calling mid-rounds, and he didn't have to micromanage as much because all of these players are just so skill-oriented that they can, make their own decisions and they don't have to get micromanaged on a map like Mirage. So they just looked so comfortable on it, and some of their T-sides looked immaculate. But I think it still ties back to cohesion. This team is still not cohesive enough. This team still doesn't have a reliant player that you can say time in and time out, this is the player that's going to get you numbers. Sure, you can take a musical chairs approach to it, but I don't think that works in the long run. Because how do you consistently qualify for playoffs? If Rez bottom frags one game and top frags in the other, and then you add that same conversation to Config, you add it to Brolin, you add it to Headtrick. I mean, when do you have consistency? And it feels like seemingly never.
I think Headtrick's a better rifler than Orpa.
Oh yeah.
I think he's much. I actually wouldn't even mind if they moved Headtrick to a rifling role and brought in an Orpa. But I think he looks way more confident as a rifler. I think he's actually tier 1 rifler as well. I think he's very good.
Yeah.
But I agree.
Yeah, don't
I think they
disagree.
performed way better than I thought they would. I had no hopes for them at all. So much better than
Yeah.
I thought. I think you're spot on.
I agree. So I want to talk about the quarterfinal losers now.
Yeah.
So I think Monty, I'll just quickly mention them as a first one. Just say I think I'm going to give them like an A minus because I think they
I agree.
did incredible to get there, but probably would have wanted to beat Gamer Legion. I feel like that was a very winnable quarterfinal for them. Into the Breach, A star. They played against the best team at the event in the quarterfinal. They did some great work against them as well. Cypher was owning Zywu on a number of these rounds. It was
He even
it
said
was a
it.
sight to see.
Yeah, in
It
the
was a sight
overtime
to
show.
see in the crowd. It was absolutely wonderful.
Maybe a bit UK bias, but the fact that even Zywu said in the kind of the overtime show, he was like, "Oh yeah, like he fucking destroyed me. There was nothing I could do." Like you've got the best player in the world at the moment, and there's not even close to Zywu at the moment. That's the thing. You've got the best player in the world right now who said he fucking destroyed me. There was nothing I could do. I mean, credit like his in that one map alone of Vertigo, his stock went up about 10 times. So,
Oh, absolutely.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And it's
So
just,
I'm gonna-
it's just brute force, you know. It's not even
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
he's playing it cerebral. It's literally a ramp, like the most simple setup ever. And he just flies through that A ramp smoke again and again and again. Zywu plays side hall, he gets his head banged
Relentless.
off. He plays crane, he gets his head banged off. He waits for the smoke to fade. He throws a flash in. Apex is there with him. Cypher kills both of them. Like some stupid shit. You know,
Yeah.
it is
It was
crazy.
so cool. It was so cool to see. I
it was.
completely
It
agree.
was
That's why I
good in
think
the
I'm gonna give
crowd
them
as well. It was.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I agree. Yeah, they were sort of, they weren't like, there was a bit of booing, of course, as you'd expect, because it was
Yeah.
all French, but like
Yeah.
they
That's
were quite
part of it.
respectful.
Yeah, Thomas loved it as well. Thomas was like, he was egging it on, so he was a big fan of it. So, no, yeah.
They were respectful for sure. So I'm gonna give them an A star for that one. I think I
Also,
want
just
give.
to add to it, this is a team that I think I saw a stat from like Leeds or something, like it was like 86% of people put 0-3, right?
Yes.
And
Sounds right.
there-
I didn't in the end.
I didn't
put
as
Game
well.
Relations in
I,
0-3.
I even I even said in Discord, I was like, do not put them 0-3. I guarantee they'll get at least one win. Granted, though, I didn't expect them to make it through to the champion stage. Like,
No.
as much as I want to be biased and say I'm all heroic, no chance. I did not expect them to make it to the champion stage. That in itself is they're the first team from the UK to not make it to the RMR, first team from the UK to make it to a major, first team from the UK to make it to the champion stage. So they are breaking records every single
piece
win.
they have as well works so well. Like you had that you could see their system work so well. Like the experience of Ralan really came into play for like in a lot of
Yeah, I agree.
scenarios. Even though Cypher was a rookie, I guess you could describe him as, he was insane.
It's his first
and even
LAN.
sort of the other,
First ever LAN.
yeah,
So 100% he's a rookie.
Rookie's the
Came
perfect.
with his Tesco bag of
Yes.
of
I remember
gear.
when he walked into the RMR with it, like, so we were in the green room, and I also got grabbing a coffee, and he walks in with a Tesco bag. I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? He was like, oh, I lost my bag, so I have to carry my, like, keyboard in this. I was like, I hate you. Like, what are you doing?
Reminds me of the meme that I saw like a few weeks ago or something of the Tesco extra like graphics card and mouse from like what 2005 or something. It's like one of those ball map mice with like the
the grey ball at the bottom.
Yeah, oh, it was absolutely hilarious.
Crisp
But
as.
yeah, I think it was just such a beautiful result. Like for everyone who supported ITB and everyone who's followed the team ever since the beginning, with all the rosters moves they went through as well. I mean, they had Draken and Rusty for a while, right? As
And
well,
Adam
like,
9130 and Dobbo.
and had Dobbo for what? Like,
Oh,
come on, man!
Dobbo.
Like
Yeah.
these rosters that
ginger
they had
ninja.
before, these rosters that they had before were just like completely all over the place. And for them to find success with this one is just glorious. I'm gonna hand the floor to Paladin now and ask him what he thinks of Liquid losing 2-0 to Apex GG.
No, I'll be completely honest. I'm so happy this result happened. Like, I'll be dead honest.
It
Like,
needed to.
I think there's a lot to like about Liquid in terms of some of their individuals, but at the end of the day, you have to look at the results that they've gotten, and there are all so many caveats to every deep run that they had that their luck had to run out at some point. And I'm glad it was against a roster like Apex who just wanted it more, to be plain and simple with you on stage. Like, you could just see the amount of energy that's flowing through this team when they're going up against them, and they look like they're the experienced ones playing that game. And Liquid looked scared as shit, just as usual. I mean, that is what this roster is known for, and that's what this roster has continued to show. And you know, I gotta give credit to OC for stepping up to the plate. I think he had a lot of emotional energy on his shoulders that he had to push through, and he did very well to do that. I mean, it's not easy for a youngster, much as a youngster on Liquid, to go and take matters into his own hands and be that hype man for some experienced veterans who don't show that much emotion in Elysian and NAF and even Nitro. So, I mean, obviously, I think we'll talk about it sooner. I mean, honestly, I'd just like to talk about it now. I mean, obviously,
Go
Nitro
ahead.
out the door at this point. And, you know, they've been flirting with the idea to keep Yekindar as an IGL, if not put him back into Star Rules. But I think the fact that that door is open now makes me so much more excited for Liquid Trajectory, because I think NAF, Leech, and OC, I think they can still get it done. I think that even if you're locked to that 3-man core, if you want to stay in NA, it's still a really solid core. I think OC's got what it takes to kind of ramp himself up. And beyond that, I mean, you can either, of course, opt in Yekindar as an IGL. You can bring in a really strong EU rifle. Of course, as we've seen in the major with some of these hot stars, there are so many options that you can go with. Liquid has the money to splash if they want to. Or you could, you know, again, there's some IGLs that are also on the market that you could try to poach here and there. You could even try poaching Kicksan from Apex if you wanted to.
He's good, man. I think Kicksan's solid.
So I think this is, honestly, I'm really happy that this move happened, because it exposes all of the flaws that this Liquid roster has, with all the spotlight on them. And now you can't even go about saying that, oh, you know, maybe you give them a little bit more time. Oh, it was the wrong matchup. Oh, it was this. There was no excuses in this loss. I mean, at the end of the day, this is a flawed roster. There needs to be fixes.
It's the right call as well. Let's be honest. Nitro, he was no longer IGLing because Yekindar was doing all of it. What does he bring to this team? Like, no offense to the guy, he's a legend of the game,
go and have time with your children.
Nothing.
And stop traveling so much.
Yeah, exactly. Just our second kid as well. I saw Prof did the fucking dumbest tweet ever as well, saying like, why did he come back? Like, guys, just like a second kid. Of course he wants to spend time raising his child rather than playing competitive video games.
Look, man, this guy has seen the absolute pinnacle of the esport. You know, winning a Grand Slam, being a favorite to go into a major at Berlin. This guy has literally done it all. I mean, this guy had to play with multiple rosters as a primary opper when he never even wanted to op in the first place. I mean, Liquid as an organization didn't have an opper for their entire tenure, and they still managed to make it work. He's one of the... This is a very bold statement to say, but if you actually go down through the IGLs that are in this conversation, Nitro is one of the best IGLs to have never won a major. And that's just because... And you look at the names, and he really is up there in terms of accolades and achievements. So I think this guy has done everything that he possibly can, and trying to still make it work after Valorant, and still, again, arguably, you know, a top 10 team when this roster could have just imploded if he came back and had no clue. I think I still have to give credit to the guy for trying to make the attempt back.
The Grand Slam alone certifies it.
Yeah, I agree. I don't really buy what Prof had to say. I don't think that he was in it for the bag. I don't think that he's that type of player. I don't think he's ever been that type of player, to be honest.
He's always loved this game, and I think also as well he loves the people that he was playing with. Let's the vast majority. Obviously, I guess a new puzzle piece, but he's not a liege for basically the entirety of his professional career, right? I mean, that alone is like, you know, you're playing for the people rather than I don't think he came back for the bag, but things in life change. I mean, we're seeing this now as well with conversation about Rain. Rain's just had a kid. Like, you know, there could be I wouldn't be surprised if Carrigan retires after the CS2 major in Copenhagen. It's on home turf.
Yeah,
I wouldn't be surprised if he calls it then. The guy's getting on a bit. He's changed it. He's got married recently. I'm sure he's going to be either trying for kids or is already trying. You know, your priorities in life change, and when you look at the schedules, and especially NA guys as well, their schedules are not good. Like, they are spending the vast majority of their year abroad, right? I mean, there was a thing about them traveling basically like 270 days a year. Like, it's an incredible amount of time. Most of it's not in NA as well. Of course, you have IEM Dallas and Washington this year, but it hasn't always been the case, especially up until recently. Post-COVID, very few things happening in NA. So they've always been in Europe. He's never been at home with his wife and now 2 kids as well. Like, your things in life change. I think Prof really misread the room there when he came out with that tweet. I think you know, as seen by the replies, he's getting absolutely cooked by it. I don't think he came back for the bag. Granted, I think one thing he did say, which I kind of understand, is did he come back and really underestimate how much you actually have to travel? Like, did he kind of just forget about this? Which probably not. So it's kind of like, I think he came in and like was like, okay, I remember how much it is to travel, but fuck it, like, it'll be alright. Like, that can be future Nitro's problem. So I can understand that sort of sentiment. but yeah, he's old now. He's had his career. He's been Liquid for 9 years in total of his career, something like that.
Respect to him. I think. Yeah, I think he deserves it, right? I think at this point.
Exactly. They'll Liquid will bounce back. They'll be fine. I do think though, when you look at the changes they're gonna have to make, who do they bring in? I saw some people talk about Swisher. I don't really think Swisher's the right call when they could be. I don't think he's bad, but I think they can bring up much better players with the money they've got to work with from EU. I don't think from NA it's quite tough. I don't think there's a lot of talent to go from.
I'd like Swisher on Cole. I think that would be a much better move.
Get minus Fang plus Swisher. Simple as that.
That's a definitely. I feel like stylistically, I think culturally, I think it just fits better with Complexity's brand. I think Liquid should be looking EU here, no matter what the 100%. Decision is. I think they should be looking either for a strong EU rifle. Of course, Flames is a conversation starter. And there's so many others. I mean, Boros and Cypher, sure, they'll have very pricey buyouts, considering these orgs will want to make.
I don't know how much Boros is, but I know Cypher's is pretty good.
But at the same time, I think Liquid is the type of team to make that decision. Again, you could try to do the EU IGL route, try to get Kickstand from Apex, or try to get Shuhei from Gamer Legion. All these are very viable options. Obviously, it's one thing for these orgs to have enough money, but it's another thing for the players to actually want to go to NA, or to an NA org rather. But I think that there are so many more options now that Nitro himself has just said, I'm going to call it quits here.
Let's be honest as well. Shuhei is the hottest target on the market right now. Off post major, sure. It's not Cypher or Boros or Ima. I know a lot of people like to focus on the stats, but my God, having an IGL, and also when you look at conversations about what people from Game Legion, when they speak about Shuhei, they're like, oh, he's the best. Like Acor saying he's the best IGL I've ever worked with, and that resonates, right? I would not be surprised if a team like FaZe look at Shuhei. If Karrigan's
Karrigan himself,
Karrigan's been nurturing him up, saying like this is is the next best IGL, and if Karrigan's going to call it a day, I would not be surprised to see something like Shuhei go towards FaZe. Even if Shuhei went and plays as a 6th man and just learn a little bit, get ready for the system, and then in towards the CS2 major, maybe Karrigan has his last one, then Shuhei comes in and takes the throne. There's things like that. Obviously, that's very hopeful thinking. It doesn't always work like that. But
no.
Basically, every big team, even G2 will be looking at him. If Hookty keeps fucking up, obviously, I don't think he is innately an issue. But
like Hassad thinks.
Yeah. I think if things keep going south, he will be the first on the chopping block. Though they're not going to get rid of anyone else on that team. So
yeah,
I think maybe actually they need a coach personally. But
right. I was going to you're talking about FaZe. So I want to actually pick them up a little bit. I think actually I was quite. Sure, they lost against Heroic in the quarterfinal, but actually, I was quite. It's weird to say this because we expect FaZe to be a contender in every single major, but I was quite impressed with them actually overall. Like
that's an expected loss as well.
If we yeah, absolutely. Like if we look past the 16-12 loss to ITB, which was, to be fair, on Inferno, which can be a bit of a lottery map as it is.
Yeah.
But if we look past that.
Cypher as well had an insane game on that one.
Yeah,
absolutely.
He was born and raised on F. He was
born
and raised in...
That B site looked legitimately like a house of cards, and he would just fucking bulldoze.
Absolutely.
2 a.m. Faceit games and Faceit Premium is where Cypher was born and raised on Inferno. So that is his bread and butter.
It feels like whenever you watch FaZe, right, it feels like they're on the edge of collapse nearly every single time you watch them. But they have that soul, they have that fight, they have the passion, and they have that sort of I will not lose unless I've given my absolute best ability. Not like a Navi who capitulated on Nuke against Monty, for example. I feel like FaZe would not let that happen. If they were going to lose, they were going to lose in a close game. And we saw that, right? The BNE win they had, it was 19-17, 16-14. Respect to get through that one. Yeah. Then they managed to take down Navi, which was that Anubis game, 22-19. I watched that. That was just a beautiful watch. It felt so significant in the history of Counter-Strike to watch that game. But they were expected to lose to Heroic. 100%. And I think that's actually the best they could have done. So for that reason, I'm happy to give them almost a B+, I would say, for their run at the major.
However, I was personally, the only thing I disagree with that, I would say their RMR was fucking terrible. Like going to the LCQ.
They got so many chances.
If you look at
the
grand
all 3
scheme,
BO3s.
Yeah, literally. If you look at the grand scheme, I don't think it was a good major from FaZe. They should never be going LCQ. Like that should never happen. And then even the Challenger Legend stage as well, there were just moments where the side looked shaky, and that for me that's not what I expect from FaZe. This is reigning champs, right? This is meant to be kind of a side who are revered as some of the best of the best. Granted, they were okay, but even then going 3-2, what it was, I don't know. For me, that's the big problem. I don't think FaZe performed as good as they should have. So I would even maybe look at them more like a B minus. I know obviously the heroic loss was absolutely expected, but going into the LCQ never should happen. Barely scraping through as well in the Challenger Legend stage. That for me is where I like maybe draw the line and saying actually this was actually a pretty in the entire major cycle was a massive underperformance. This is reigning champs, top 5 team in the world who are guaranteed meant to be like a kind of a minimum semi-finalist. Let's not beat around the bush here. Granted, heroic was different, but they should have actually played heroic because they should have had a higher seeding and they should have played against like an Apex or a Gamer Legion or a Monty or an ITB or whatever, right? So that's where I maybe then draw the line of saying, actually, was it that good? I know they lost the heroic, which is expected, but every other game along the line wasn't. And you look at some of the losses they had as well. The ITB one was pretty big in that sense, where you're like, okay, that best of one, they got shown up, right? And those are the losses that this is meant to be what, top 5 team in the world, if maybe even higher than that, right? For in many people's opinions. That for me, yeah, this is reigning champs. They should be reigning champs who just won the Grand Slam. They should be doing better.
To me, I feel like this roster had the Antwerp energy that they had to actually win the whole thing. Where it's like, again, it is that same energy of like we're like on the ball or the verge of getting eliminated, but we're gonna clutch our way through. You know, Rop's gonna have a crazy round, Brokey's gonna have a crazy round. You know, hell, Kerrigan's gonna have a crazy round himself. And you know, Rain was still charging up. He was still putting up the numbers that he needed to put up. And I thought I actually had FaZe to go through and win the whole damn thing because I think once they get onto that stage, they turn into a different beast. But it seemed like that energy had just run out by the time they got into Mirage. Heroic seemingly had beaten their demons and were gearing up to potentially play in a major final. But of course, Gamer Legion existed. But I mean, you look at the games that they lost. They lost to ITB. I think that is probably the most egregious one that they lost. But again, you know, best of ones happen. I think Cypher again played in Unreal Inferno. The game against Heroic, I think they played on Ancient, if I'm not mistaken. Oh, sorry, no, they played on Inferno. Yeah. And again, I think that Heroic have a very confident Inferno as of right now. And then they lost to a best of 3 in the Challenger stage against Ents, which I think Ents just played a very, very good game. And I think that Snappy called a really, really great nuke to try to close out that series. So I think that, I mean, of course you can have that conversation about like, you know, seedings and matchups and whatever. But I felt like they still had enough in the tank to, like, I mean, if they had a different quarterfinal, maybe we could see them in the final. I think they could have still had a chance to win the trophy. And honestly, I think they would have beaten Gamer Legion if they were put in that scenario.
So in that case, then, if you think they would have beaten Gamer Legion, do you think that the heroic failure against Gamer Legion shines even worse on heroic then, in that sense?
Yeah, because
but Gamer Legion was so good though.
They were
the
really
thing
good.
Is, right, is like fundamentally heroic as a roster. I mean, honestly, we can just get into the semifinalists now.
Okay, go. Yeah, go.
But I feel as though heroic lost to themselves. Of course, Gamer Legion played a fantastic game. It was just unreal. Of course, it's always there.
Best rifle at the major.
But you look at Inferno, I will always think about that overpeak from Cadian on Churchside on that beast fight.
Yes. Me and Neo watched that live. We looked at each other like, Cadian?
Yeah.
Like what's he done that for? Like that was just that was egregious.
That was the beginning of the end because then you could start to slowly see just mistakes starting to boil up and that kind of pent up anger and frustration was continuing to build, and then that turned into pressure, then it turned into fear, and then you saw in Mirage at that point, of course, Gamer Legion's unshackled. Shuei can call circles around Cadian because he just got that much confidence that they were able to come back on Inferno, and then you see that there's also just some obscene mistakes coming out from all of these players. I think Cadian loses a 1v1 to himself at that point. I think Stown had some errors as well. And the reason why this is all just so shitty to me is because you think about them beating FaZe, that feels like you've beaten your demons. You've conquered a very tough best of 3 in a best of 3 that you were the favorite to win, and you confirmed that and you stamped your ticket to the semis. This is now your major to win. You know, you go toe-to-toe against Vitality in the final. Gamer Legion should be an afterthought. This should not be a best of 3 where you should be worried. But the fact that they still looked worried, that their star players still looked worried against a team like this, is is very sad. And of course, I'm always gonna give credit to Gamer Legion for putting up a great best of three. But if you're in heroic shoes, you gotta think, we were deservedly the
Yeah.
better team going into this best of.
Yeah, it felt that the game, especially in the arena, right? The game felt strange. It felt like Heroic were feeling comfortable. It felt like they were doing exactly what they needed to do in nearly all given its circumstances in that game. But then there would be certain scenarios where Game Legion would hit around where Emma would get 3 kills. It would break the heroic economy and it would get them into a situation where they can get 2 or 3 in a row. And they just kept putting the pressure on over and over. And in the end, the final map wasn't even that close. And it just when Heroic played that final map, it felt like they were sort of playing with sadness. Do you know what I mean? Like they're thinking, "Oh God, we've actually got upset here, haven't we? Oh God, we've actually dropped the ball when we thought we should have made the grand final. It should have been us." And that was sort of there was an air of that feeling, even while they were still playing, even though it probably wasn't what they were feeling themselves. Right? It was a strange one, but even though Heroic is sort of have that mentality of they'll probably never give up, which they don't. It just didn't feel like that when Game of Legends looked so good. There was an air of resignation, and that's unusual for a Heroic team in that sort of scenario in my eyes. However, I think that even though now Cadian's going to go without a major in CS:GO, I think that they can still be proud of what they've done in the game in general, especially with this particular roster. They were the one of the best teams in the world, like alongside G2. They're, for my eyes, one of the only 2 S-tier teams for quite a good portion of this year so far. But Game Legion just showed up at the right time, showed up with a IGL wanting to prove himself in Suhei. He absolutely did that. Emma was unbelievable. And just that star power kept Heroic at bay from that final that I think a lot of us wanted to see. However, Gamer Legion thoroughly deserved it, and I'm not going to say that Heroic should have, could have. I don't really care. Gamer Legion were better. They deserve to be there. That's full stop.
I mean, once again, you've got to say A-star for Game Legion as well, right? There's like, I don't think
A-star.
A-star. Yeah, there's no argument there. This is a side who have just completely overperformed in the best manner, and they picked their moment on that all the way through. They looked good against Monty. Like, they massacred Monty. That second map was overpass, I'm pretty sure. They destroyed them. There was no competition there. So, I mean, and not many teams have been able to do that. Monty are a side who have been very difficult to break down, and they've absolutely destroyed them. So I think for me, that shows Gamer Legion have that ability to not only take on tier 2 teams which are highly unpredictable, but then tier 1 teams that are very predictable but very difficult to beat in that of Heroic and Monty back to back. So I think for me, they're A-star. I think even when you look at, like, Monty, I would even still give them an A. A Gamer Legion an A-star. Apex, I'd probably even give them an A as well. Maybe not an A-star, but an A.
Yeah, I'll give them an A.
Just I don't think they beat like an so. Trevor is not here now, but he could vouch. The entire time I was there, I was saying Apex is going to beat Liquid, like, it's guaranteed. Like, and that's not even my Liquid hate.
Yeah.
It was just because
No.
they genuinely play really good Counter-Strike. And this is the thing, we're now starting to see the resurgence of some of these bigger names, which is always good to see. Like Jacob, it's good to see Jacob performing well and playing to the level we know he can play at. But also some of these other names coming through, like Stiko, we've seen him again kind of resurge his career. Stiko's been around for fucking ages. We haven't seen him at this top level for, I can't even remember how long. Definitely before I started commentating. So, been a long time. On top of all of that as well, though, you've got the likes of Kiksan, who many people, when he got brought into this roster, everyone was like, okay, is he actually going to make a difference? Yeah, he's actually now started to prove himself as being one of the best IGLs in Tier 2. He's done it with a real ragtag bunch of players. So, yeah, I think all in all, very, very good performances. I'm really hoping, in fact, they can continue this on. I know, actually, I did see this when I was scrolling HTV earlier, that Apex and Monty are playing today, I'm pretty sure. So, that actually it's got
Consolidation final.
Yeah, it's got 3 stars on HTV, which is just like insane to me, but cool to see. That's kickstarting. Oh, it's going to kickstart in a minute. Yeah, consolidation final of ESL Challenger League. So that's actually a really cool game, all things considered. But yeah, it's as it goes, sick. Good to see those guys perform well. I only hope that they can continue it. But the amount of Counter-Strike that Monty play, I'm so certain they will. Monty are playing. Well, they came in towards the major cycle, playing 163 maps compared to Mousy, who only played 34. That we're already starting to see it with teams like Miles as well, right? it's proof in the pudding where their problems are. They just don't play enough Counter-Strike. The same thing happened to OG last year. They didn't play enough Counter-Strike, which is why they went to ESL Challenger Melbourne when they didn't have to, which is why they were starting to play these tier 2 tournaments. Mals need to do that. They simply just don't play enough officials. But Monty, the complete opposite, is proof that work ethic pays off, man. Credit to them. These guys are grinders. They've got their time in the limelight, and they've absolutely shown up when it matters most. So A-star for Game Legion, AA for Apex and Monty in my eyes.
So let's talk about the elephant in the room. Of course, the champions of Paris Major, Vitality, doing it on home soil. Zywoo gets his first. Apex gets his second after God knows how long.
7
I think it's the
years,
longest
something
gap.
like that,
Yeah, I think it's like the
Cluj
longest
Napoca?
gap.
Cluj Napoca,
Yeah, Cluj
sorry,
Napoca,
2015, was it?
2015, yeah.
Oh my god, even longer. 8 years. Whew.
Yeah, longest gap between major victories ever, I think, in the game. Dupree getting major number 5, Magistic getting major number 4, Zonic on major number 5. I mean,
yeah,
Spinks the first ever Asian Middle Eastern player to win
Yes.
a major as well. Like that, I mean, the records and the numbers that you have to talk about these players is just unreal. And to do it in the fashion that they did, of course, you know, there's obviously going to be that conversation that they had the weakest run to actually win the major itself in terms of
it's not
opposition.
their fault though.
It's not their fault.
Yeah.
You know, it's not their fault. They had to beat who was ahead of them, but the fashion and what they did it, the way they did it in, and you then compared that same sort of form that the other top teams had against said opposition, and you compare that 1-to-1, and that's where I start to see that, you know, Vitality, they took care of business, where all of these teams had struggles. You know, FaZe had their struggles, Heroic, G2, Liquid, all had their so-called struggles against these tier 2 opposition. Vitality had no issues whatsoever. That final, frankly, was not even a contest. Even on Nuke, even with Imma surging back on that CT side, as soon as they switched sides, Vitality just kicked it up in a high gear. They looked unstoppable, and they looked just destined to win the cup altogether.
They
So
coasted.
I'm really happy that they were able to coast, you know, and even and funnily enough, Zywoo didn't even have the craziest, you know, playoff run. I mean, it wasn't that group stage Zywoo that we were known to have. It was the other players stepping up. Spinks had an unreal tournament. Magisk was reliant as ever. Even
Uni
Apex and
fuming at
Dupree
that
were
one.
having
Do you
rounds
remember?
of their own.
Do you remember when people were saying, "Oh, Dupree, why is he still on this team? Make sure Jax is on the team after Pro League."
we
Remember
go.
this? Like everyone
Yeah,
was
yeah.
saying, "No, get Dupree off his team. Jax made the team look better." While doubters silenced. I
As
think.
Richard
mean,
Lewis
even-
say,
even
how would you
after
feel now,
Rio,
dickhead?
right? Even after Rio, I had my doubts about Dupree. I was like,
I
look,
did,
man, he
yeah.
had a great tournament, but I mean, that's Rio. Of course, not many people are vying for that tournament. What if that form drops off even 5%? Then where does Vitality stand? But that didn't change whatsoever. He was still consistent as ever. He still elevated his role very well. You know, always getting that 1 or 2 kills as an anchor. I mean, sometimes he was going above and beyond, getting 3 kills on that CT side.
Yeah.
I think he did his job and then some. So I mean, I gotta give credit to Vitality for, you know, one, from an organizational standpoint, to make the money moves and make these tough calls and to splash the cash where it was needed, and get rewarded for it at the end of it all. Because I mean, yeah, you've spent a lot of money to get some of the best players of all time, and the fact that they weren't able to win is actually surprising. But now
Also-
it makes sense.
Also, an important stat that I think I read earlier is I believe Vitality in that run is only the second major team ever
Apart from
to play the
Na'Vi.
playoffs and the regular legend stage without losing a map. That was after Na'Vi in Stockholm.
Stockholm.
So
I would
was,
say though that
pretty
Na'Vi run
remarkable.
was 10 times more dominant. They
Oh,
were
of course.
actually
Yeah.
untouchable.
Oh, yeah.
That was like
Oh,
of
that is
course.
prime. I remember watching that, just mind blowing. But no,
It was prime,
Yeah.
but yeah, they still didn't lose, and that's the main factor. Yeah.
exactly. So yeah, I mean that it was the fairy tale ending, wasn't it? I mean, obviously it was just
was correct.
yeah, you know, French, the love, you know, the language of love, and it was a lovely ending in Paris. It was beautiful. It was really like, it was just like, I don't think it could have been a more kind of poetic ending, right? The golden boy, the chosen one of Counter-Strike, born on the day. Was he born on the day that Source came out, or something like that? Like
It was the original Counter-Strike.
yeah,
It is
there we
the
go,
Counter-Strike,
right?
yeah.
Born on the same exact day, and he goes and wins the final CS:GO major. And I think you can start now. Not that I'm gonna entertain it right now, but I think you can start making jabs at him being the GOAT, all right?
I will not. But
But like when people start making those conversations, I think there's now kind of theory behind it. Not that I'm gonna entertain it. because we haven't seen the longevity out of it. But what he's got now it's going to be his 3rd year being best player in the world. He's now got a major. He's now got an EPL. He's kind of winning a lot of the big things. I mean, this guy is continuing to dominate.
It's like.
No, I'm not saying. I'm not personally saying it. I'm just saying when people put it on Twitter, I'm not like, oh, you're a fucking idiot, like I normally do. Like I was like, okay, I can kind of see where you're coming from. So,
Yeah, he's sort of like. It's sort of like going to the Triple Crown route. Like there's obviously like the Grand Slam in tennis and like the Triple Crown events in other big sports, right? 3 huge events across
footy.
Yeah, treble in footy, all that sort of stuff, right? I think Zaiwu, he's got the Pro League. He's now got the major. I think he's had a big IEM too, even if it wasn't necessarily that impressive back in the day, right? But if he gets like another big one, if he gets a Cologne, if he gets a Cato, he's got all 3 that you can win, right? Whether it's obviously Cologne's going to be the big one. If he can get a Cologne as well this year, I've got to say that really puts him high on the list. He'll be guaranteed number 1 of the year. I think he might be guaranteed number 1 of the year already anyway.
Yeah, surely.
But yeah,
who's even
I think
second?
That's a good question.
That's the question that someone said to me like, oh, you know, he's probably guaranteed. I was like, well, name second place. Who is it? I don't know.
It's hard, isn't it?
Yeah, who is it?
It could go anywhere. It could genuinely go. If Game Legion keep up their form, Emma could easily come second in the course of the year, couldn't he?
Yeah, he was one map away from being MVP at that tournament as well. With 1.46 going in towards the final, which was.
We had a chat about that. Yeah. It was pretty cool. But yeah, I agree with you. Like, if he can add a Cologne and then maybe even add a Cato, like in CS2 to the belt. And if he dominates CS2 like he's dominated quite a lot of Go, just the way his playstyle is, how smooth it is, how natural it feels watching him play. Yeah. If he's as good as that in CS2, I have no reason to doubt why he couldn't one day be listed as a very comfortable GOAT.
Yeah. Right now, at the moment, he's like, when you look at he started in 2018. That was the start of his career. If you look at that 5-year span, there's no competition when you think about it. He's about to get his 3rd out of the what? It's been since 2018. Yeah, they've got 5 years, right, of him playing competitive Counter-Strike, and he's gonna have 3 out of the 5 years being the number 1 player in the world. I mean, that alone is a pretty monumental start. Like, if he can keep this up longevity-wise, I don't think there's any argument at the moment. But I did find it really funny how the minute they won the major, Vitality instantly like, yeah, we're extending that contract. Like, there's no chance. Like, you know, they're putting a buyout of like millions on him as well. Like, which is probably like, apart from Device, it never happened. So, he's gonna be untouchable. Vitality are gonna, I would assume, remain a powerhouse. And if they don't, they've got the money now to then start bringing in players. It's a pretty. Wants to retire at some point, you know, he's getting on a bit, you know, again, the same arguments to make about kind of the likes of Rain and Carrigan, getting family, settling down. He's been around for a long time. He might call it a day sooner rather than later. Copenhagen also, I guess, you know, on Danish soil, if at that major, might call it, who knows. You know, to settle down, get a family, do what's what. Yeah, it's one of those things. They've got the money and they've absolutely got the pulling power to bring anybody. It doesn't matter who you are, whether you're, even if you are the likes of a FaZe or a G. Actually, probably FaZe, because FaZe is, as an organization, is in the fucking mud at the moment. So, they've got the buying power. They've got everything they need to. So I don't think they'll have any sort of problems there. So I don't know. Interesting times. I think for Vitality, we could see this side become a real power. I think if they lock in a Grand Slam as well, then we have to start talking about this team in a big scope about. Like longevity wise, right? They're doing everything right.
I agree. Are we ready to move on?
Moving on. Let's moving on.
Is this Paladin segment time?
Paladin segment.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we'll just touch upon it very briefly, but I mean, with the Blast Paris major.
Do you guys mind if I eat something quickly? Is that okay?
Feel free.
Yeah. Okay. I think it's a bummer that we're at a point where there are a lot of storylines that have to come to a sad ending. You know, of course, we had the very happy ending of Vitality winning on home soil, but at this point right now, I feel like we've got to give reference to the players that didn't manage to win a major at the end of Go, and that's Nico, that's Cadian, and that's Elige. I think those are the 3 biggest players that were in attendance this time around that I really would have at least liked to see them in the final to at least potentially go toe-to-toe. But Elige, of course, one of the players that made an NA in at least the conversation to be, you know, some of the greatest players of all time. You have Nico, undoubtedly the GOAT rifler in our game, having the opportunity to finally have a team that can go all the way to win tournaments. They showed that they could win Katowice and couldn't get it done. And of course, Cadian the one that'll always be the bridesmaid but never the bride, you know, and
Yeah.
I like
always
that.
always getting that top 2, top 4, but never the trophy. And sure, he had his win at Blastfall Finals, but it'll never compare
Mhm.
to a Kato, to a Cologne,
It's
to a
forgettable.
major. It never will. Yeah. And at the end of the day, all of these players will have to just kind of sit and see the confetti fall, and they'll always have to be sitting in the chair and not lifting the trophy itself, you know. So it's a bummer, and of course, Simple and Kerrigan could not get their second either. That was also kind of a sad way to go. But yeah, I think it sets up CS2 quite well, you know. Can these players find redemption there, or is it too late? I think it sets up the new game very well.
Yeah, 100%. I think now we look towards kind of who's going to kickstart things to CS2 rather than it was always that thing of who's going to finish CS:GO really well. It's now who can start off CS2 really well. I think Heroic still have one of the best chances, to be perfectly honest. I think they're probably one of the strongest teams when we look towards just generally at going into CS2. They are absolutely dominant in terms of the grandiose scope they were like prior to the major itself. So you definitely still have to kind of keep an eye on them. I think for me, they would still be one of my favorites as of right now, alongside the likes of Vitality.
Yeah, and I think the biggest reason why I would pick Heroic as that top team is because they're not individually reliant, and CS2 is going to be a dramatically, not dramatically, but like it will be a fundamentally different game in terms of mechanics and, you know, like basic aim and like and movement and like utility and the interactions between the utility and such. But Heroic as a system works so well that I don't think they necessarily need, you know, brilliant mechanics to get them across the line. I think that they can just fundamentally understand the game quicker than any other organization.
Yeah, for
And they'll
sure.
be able to get it done. But yeah, that's just my little in memoriam segment about
Yeah.
the kind of fallen players before Vitality actually lifted the trophy.
Rest in peace. Rest in peace. There wants to pick up a CS:GO major, but it was always gonna be the case, right? Like only one of. I've never seen all this posts of only one of, you know, Nico or Zywoo or Cadian get a major before it ends in CS:GO. But having spoke to a lot of people, both players, analysts, and whatever, a lot of the players don't actually view this as kind of the end of CS:GO. It's like, okay, cool, we're changing Source Engine, but this is just kind of a, you know, it's still the same old. The circuit's not really changing apart from we've got one major here rather than two. But at the same time, it's still, you know, it's one major rather than two is not the really most uncommon thing. We had it back in the COVID times. It's not the end of the world, right? They've got a little bit longer wait to the next major. But I don't think a lot of pros view this as, oh my god, I fucked it. This is the end. We got, you know, I've got to start fresh kind of thing. I think it'll be, hopefully, it doesn't affect their mental too much. I'm looking at more players like Nico and Cadian, who's like obviously got a big deal for them.
Yeah, I think in Nico's case, I think he's got more chance for me. I don't know, it's weird. I feel like of all the players that have kept up the consistency and all of Go, Nico is the one that's up there. We can make your arguments for Elige, which is fair, but he has not been as at the form that he can be. Nico still can be considered the same occasionally, right? Like Nico does drop off and can drop off, and has been seen to drop off in quite big games for G2, but the fact he's still on the team and still can perform to that huge level and win championships at a huge level too makes me confident in Nico that he can win a major in CS2. I think the fact that he's been around since, like, he still occasionally has his carry games like he did when he was in Mouse, and that's 2015. Like, if Apex can win a major in 2015 and win a major in 2023, why can't Nico win events back then and then win events now? Like, it's absolutely within his grasp.
Let's see. I guess we can move on to Dallas, right? I guess probably the next one now.
Yeah.
We've already spoken about Nitro retiring. Of course, that is it's a sad one for everybody involved. But Dallas itself looking like actually a pretty cool event, all things considered. There's going to be quite a lot of talking points. We've already had kind of the groups come out, 2 groups coming through. Take a little look at them as well. We'll just run through off the top of my head. We'll just go through the opening round, and I just want to give you, quick little one word, unless you've got like something very specific to talk about, who's going to take these games. Heroic 9Z, I'm assuming we're all leaning the same way. Heroic, take that one, should be comfortable. Fnatic Mouse, assuming Fnatic for everybody.
Battle of the Mid.
Battle of the Mid, yeah.
That is kind of Battle of the Mid, I will say.
It's a game I will be not watching.
Just to be contrary, I'm going to take Mouse because of Fnatic being hungover from the major.
I'm going to go with Fnatic.
I will not be there. I will not be giving you an answer.
I will not be watching that game. Same with this next game as well. Furia OG also will not be watching.
Hey, no, I will be watching that one because Regali
Is a
will be
goat.
stepping in for OG, and I really liked what I was seeing, or at least hearing the rumblings at the very least of what he's doing at that CCT Online Finals.
I watched his first map against AGO. Got the 2.02 first game.
He still got it.
35 and 10. In like a 16-10 game as well. It wasn't even like a double OT whatever. Like it was like a regulation game, dropping 35 and 10, 2.02.
I think everybody should tune into at least one OG map here or there just to
watch
this guy
Regali.
play.
Yeah, for sure.
Because
this is like first time we would have seen him on LAN properly as well, right?
I think
This
so.
is his first LAN. Yeah, it's his first LAN, I think.
First LAN ever. So that's a huge thing for his career and a huge thing to watch for people that are interested in it. Of course, I would say.
I've been singing his praises for a long time, and finally people they're realizing this guy is a god.
He's been our goat for a while.
Exactly,
yeah,
exactly.
Pardon, you think Nouns are beating G2? That is one of the most mismatched games I've seen in a while.
I'm ready for a Marquee masterclass, mate. What are you on about?
Yeah, hell yeah.
The Mexican goat.
His team has like some of the worst mental, I think, like rivaling that of the Timbermen. I will not be surprised if we see some desks being broken.
Really? That bad?
Really?
I will not be surprised.
Oh, I can't wait. I might tune in for that.
Either that or the absolute reverse where just nobody's talking.
I might tune in for that one because regardless, I can probably, it'll probably that game will finish quicker than it takes me to finish my dinner. So like it'll be it's nice and easy. Like I'll have a cup of tea and the cup of tea will still be warm by the time the game's done.
Yes,
so yeah, I do actually just go running back to very quickly. I do actually think OG can beat Furia. Like I'm actually quite. I have like some weird confidence about it.
It's a BO1 as well. So
exactly. Into Group B, let's talk about a mismatch. FaZe EG. That one should be an absolute massacre. The refreshes. Is that his first time he's now played on like not 200 ping for them? He's still be playing on 200 ping, right?
Yeah.
So I'm actually really interested to see how he does not, because he's been absolutely botting out online.
It doesn't matter.
They lost 69 to Eros or whatever, who I've never heard of. Who didn't have a rank.
Eros actually has a player called Paladin. So
there we go. Get us some stickers. You can get on the guns. You'll go. But that one should be an absolute massacre as well, like an absolute mismatch. The next one though, quite interesting, because a battle of two teams who should be playing better than they have been at Ensign Complexity. What's the thoughts there?
Well,
I'll take Ents here, but
same.
I think since it's a best of one, Complexity could get it onto map favorable for them, and I wouldn't be surprised if they do take a best of one victory. Ents can start slow. We've seen them start slow before, so I'd like to see Complexity get off the rip, just starting really fast.
Yeah.
Because I just want to see one NA team on stage when I go. So
yeah,
I would like that to happen.
Liquid Astral. Oh yeah, go on.
I'm actually going to take Complexity. Like genuinely, I'm taking Complexity for that one.
I'm not after that Melbourne performance. They were fucking shit.
True.
Yeah, they got grouped. So that's where I don't feel like confidence. I think until they make it the change of Fang, I feel like this team's in trouble. But it looks like they are making changes. They just got rid of their analyst and Anto, I think his name is. Anton, yeah. So obviously they're making changes from top down, which I think is a very good sign. I hate when teams just sit in the mid and don't do anything about it. E.g. the prime example. They're doing something. But yeah,
well, EG are doing something. They're just not doing the right thing.
Not doing the right thing, yeah. They're just questionable from all over the shop. Liquid Astralis. I am very confidently going Astralis this one. Like, unbelievably confidently. Back-to-back CCTs, that means a lot in my books. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
While the tournament's mid-AF, I think the winning those online tournaments means a lot. Monty are proving it, so I'm going,
No, honestly, I agree.
Sorry, Altex looks pretty decent as well. Like I haven't seen too many mistakes coming up from this kid. Of course, it'll be his first LAN, and Buzz is still budding on this team. He's not necessarily completely on the scene yet. But I think
he's played missed games LANs, right?
But let's be honest. He's played missed games. He played Dust 2 DK leagues, the Power League in Denmark, but they're not.
Those are studio LANs that there isn't really much of a crowd anyways, and of course it's like tier 3 opposition.
He's not playing in front of 10,000 people on a stage in a where like it's so loud you can feel the vibrations. I don't think he's played any of those, so it's a different. I don't think Buzz has, right?
Buzz has not been on a stage either. Yeah. He's been getting grouped. Yeah, so. It'd be new for him.
Yeah. So I don't know. Already you got a couple of storylines that have kind of Astralis do it on the
But
stage.
we're not even there yet, and for that reason,
Exactly.
I think that's all I'll take Astralis to
Mhm.
Fair enough.
win that.
Yeah, fair enough.
And
And then
Cloud9, probably.
yeah, final game, Cloud9 Greyhound. Part of me wants to go Greyhound just for the story that they beat them before, but like it seems like
Yeah.
Greyhound a little bit of a kryptonite and best of ones. They love a best of one.
Yeah, true.
But I feel like C9 are on some like demon time kind of thing. Like they want to.
And they're reigning champs, so I mean, who
Exactly,
knows?
yeah.
Maybe they got that fire to go back to back. So
Mhm.
who knows?
Yeah, part of me just thinks about that sort of thing where they just really want to bounce back and really want to, prove it on the major, which is like a real hiccup. Like everything
Yeah,
else
yeah.
is to be fine. But Paladin, you're going. How excited are you feeling?
I am so excited, man. I mean, you guys get to go to your EU lands so often, and I'm so jealous. Like, it's so funny because you're like, yeah, the Eurostar takes 2 hours to get from
Yeah,
London to
35
Paris, but
quid
I'm
each way as well.
2 hours, 2 hours
So
driving.
free, so free.
First of all, we don't even have a high-speed train here to begin with. And if I were to drive 2 hours, I live in Houston, so
Yeah.
if I were to drive 2 hours from Houston, I wouldn't even be out of the state. So,
Jesus.
like it's gonna take
Wow.
me 4.5 hours to drive from here to Dallas. So I'm taking the road trip up.
In England, that is like a mammoth drive as well. Like, that is
Right,
regarded as like an like if you do that, sometimes you'd even stop halfway, 2 hours, get lunch and stuff. Like
Exactly.
that's a big drive.
So I am very jealous, but regardless, I mean this tournament is like as close as it can be for me,
Mhm.
and I really liked what they showed last year. And
Yeah.
Jackson is the product
goat.
manager for this tournament.
El Jacko.
And I
Love
think he's done
Jackson.
some great work with EPL, and I think that and he's done some very good job in terms of the marketing for this tournament. So I
See that
think
DNA video?
yeah, I think they're nearly sold out this year, which is really
Sick.
awesome. So
How
it's already,
capacity?
like,
How big?
man, I don't really remember. But I mean, if you recall, it's the same venue that they used before.
It's
But
big,
it's actually,
right?
but yeah, it's pretty big. But they've actually booked it out this time, which is
Sick.
nice.
Do you reckon 10K at
Um,
least, or is it not that big?
Yeah, maybe like 5K, 5 to 8K maybe.
Still gonna be good noise. It's gonna be very good noise.
Yeah, no, I mean they were loud last year, so
That's
I
awesome.
think I'm looking forward to have my first like, oh well, I was there. Let me tell you how
Yeah.
it was. So looking forward to it. I mean, of course, a lot of North American friends that I'll be able to meet since we're all congregating there. So
Who
I'm
you
looking
meeting?
forward-
Who that the people would know? Darth Mike, I think is one of
God.
them, right?
yeah, Mike's gonna be one of them. Hopefully Maui Snake when he's
Yeah.
there as well. I
He's
know
working,
Adam
right?
Pie Thrower. Yeah, he's
Pie thrower. The
Adam,
man,
Adam
the
Pie
myth.
Thrower. Cole McHenry, Cole Exner
Oh.
Cole
McHenry.
McHenry.
too.
Steve Pineapple.
Steve
Steve
Pineapple.
Pineapple, and yeah, I mean, I think Jeff M&M's, the
M&Ms.
Dusty writer.
Yeah.
Note, the HLTV writer. So I mean, there's a lot of people
Big
that are gonna be
turnout.
there. So I'm excited.
Yeah, I
I'm
met Note
excited.
at Paris. He was very nice. Great guy.
Yeah.
He gave me
Nice.
my Red Bull backpack as a little present.
Oh wow.
I didn't. He told me he wanted it, so I gave it to him.
Wow.
Hey, so
Hey,
sounds good.
yeah.
Are you going to Washington as well?
Dude, it's actually the weekend immediately after, so I'd have to drive back
Oh,
to the
shit.
airport at, like the next week and then go. So I'm just,
Yeah, fair
Uh,
enough. Fair enough. You may as well see the one that everyone's going to.
everybody's picked Dallas pretty much.
Mhm.
I still think DC's sold out as well. So
Nice.
I mean, it's fine. As long as that event's sold out, I'm happy. So hopefully we get more NA events.
Yeah, I remember seeing. I don't want to drop on it. It was some player. Probably you probably will know, but one of the NA guys was saying like, I remember when it got announced that it was going to be IEM Dallas. He was like, "Oh, I hate how they've just given NA the event straight after the major. Like they just don't give a shit." But I think that's the opposite. I think everyone's so hyped up after the major that Dallas is going to be really good. Like,
I think we need to have Dallas happen every year.
Mhm.
I was talking to, I think it was Cole about this,
Mhm.
but we were talking about how Cologne, Katowice, and now the Blastfall finals
Mhm.
have happened so often now that you are so excited for those tournaments because you
Yeah.
know about the crowd, you know about the environment, you know the history of that specific
Yeah.
tournament. That if you can have Dallas as that host, that host
Yes.
city in NA, that gives excitement to having North American events regularly. And of course, it'll confirm and it'll motivate more NA orgs to come into the fold. I mean, I think it's just a symbiotic thing that could just really be helpful if they can make it happen. So I'm excited for it. I think even if they have a weird spot in the calendar, eventually, if it's good enough, they can move it into a prime slot. You can
Exactly.
have it mean a lot more. And of course, it's still a Grand Slam notch, man. I mean, some of these teams
Yeah.
will definitely want one. Vitality's not here, so I think there's still a lot to play for here.
Yeah, agreed. I guess for now, if we've got anything else, we can move on.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
Let's do
sure.
it. Move on to. Actually, I'm going to change the order a bit. I just to touch on this very quickly. I want to talk about just touching the ends thing, and obviously the article came out today. I think this is well worth talking about, just because everyone at the moment, all we're talking about is kind of the esports winter, and everything's shit. Everyone's losing money. Granted, a lot of organizations are quite literally throwing money down the drain, but we've seen a lot of news recently. FaZe in the mud with their stock all over the place, and the way it's been run at the top. Heroic have been begging everybody for money. They're in a real rough way where it could be rough. And we've seen the closure of the likes, as I mentioned in the article, Tricked, Copenhagen Flames, and Kova. I mean, the big one, mainly being Copenhagen Flames. Like, that is an organization that 2 majors ago, back in Stockholm and Antwerp. Yeah. This is a top side who are in those conversations. They've got stickers and whatnot, and I know
Heat folded as well.
You're saying?
Heat folded as well, I think.
Yes, LDLC went as well. LDLC. I mean, the whole French scene. But the French scene have got one pro organization now as well. So it's all been falling apart. But we do have one bit of good news, which is that, of course, of Ents. They've for 2022, was it? Yeah, for 2022, they had nearly €1 million in profit, which is awesome. To be a competitive team and be in profit, I think is unbelievably respectable. So I hope this is a really good precedent. We constantly right now are just hearing about how everything's shit and all the money's inflated and everything is fucked. But Ents have figured out this plan and it's working. And in my eye, I think this is a really respectable thing, because all we hear about is negative right now.
I gotta give credit to Natu, the GM of this team, and I think he had a huge task with Ents after the Finnish implosion happened, where you had the potential to just completely disintegrate the organization and just cease to exist. Because, of course, Sunny coming in and that whole fiasco and Alu IGLing, Sunny IGLing, and it was just so awful that you were like, okay, well, where do they go from here? But I think you got to give credit to Nas, you got to give credit to Saw, for both of them to say, look, we got to cut our losses here. We have to go international. And they made some really tough decisions, but they kept Dodo. They brought in Snappy.
Yeah.
And then from then on out, they've just been making smart decision after smart decision. And I think I don't think they've made a wrong decision ever since then. If I have to actually think about it. But they're getting decent finances on terms of the salary for each of these players. They've been making incremental upgrades, and even when they've had setbacks when they got in Valde, which again I think that Valde move was a sound one just because he was a free agent and you could have just to fill him up pretty easily, and then to have him upgraded into Nerds it's just really awesome to see that they've always got a plan in motion. They've always got planning 2 steps ahead. If this player steps down, if we have to remove this player, who's the next best option, and they always get things in shape to at least compete for playoffs every tournament. So I think just the foundation of this organization is so sound between Snappy, between between Saw and between Natu. Like that 3-pronged approach to it is just it's clean.
Exactly. I just think it's a really nice thing to talk about. I don't want to touch on it too long, but I just think at the moment where all we're talking about is such negatives, right? Heroic nearly folding, which is a massive one. FaZe is in the mud, and I know actually. I haven't got the picture up for it, but I know FaZe Rain, I think I don't know any of their names, nor do I care, but I know there's NA guys who played COD MW2 way back when. Granted, I used to watch them way back when, but one of the ones who is really vocal speaking out was saying about how much money they lose in the CS:GO team. And I think it's like $60,000 a month.
Yeah,
$6,000 a month, which is incredible. That's a lot of money to be losing, especially in FaZe's situation as well.
I think, of course, there's all the news about Heroic looking for investors as well. That was a long storyline that they were looking at. I think that Heroic might have got some investors, if I'm not mistaken.
It says here they got new ownership, apparently. So after months of financial turmoil. So
there you go. So that's good. That's something that's been resolved, I guess. It's important for the big orgs to stay in, because even though there's probably, overall, you'd say, I think in the Counter-Strike scene, there's still more fans of players than there are of necessarily organizations.
I'd agree.
But there are some diehards, of course, that love seeing the OG. I'm one of them. I actually love seeing the names like Fnatic and G2 and
Agreed.
these particular teams still sticking around and making and giving name value to big tournaments.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I think it's really important, and it's really good to see that ENCE are a team that are able to turn a profit
Spot on.
and to make it look so successful as well. Because as you say,
Yeah.
we don't know about the futures of some of these really big teams. Like for example, a FaZe and a Cloud9. I think I've heard
Yeah.
Cloud9 aren't necessarily hugely rich either. So
Losing money apparently and stuff. So
yeah. So I think it's really important. I completely agree.
yeah, I guess we haven't got part in here, but we can kind of move on to it. Should we talk about expected transfers? Probably our final topic, essentially. And what teams need them. And I guess probably the best way to do this is actually just run down the list of what we saw, I guess, from the elite teams.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, yeah, just the elite teams generally speaking. One thing I did want to mention just very quickly, and I don't know if any of you guys caught this, but Godsent yesterday benched Joel. And that for me was actually pretty monumental because Joel's their best player by an absolute
really good
country mile. So I think that's a really big change, but not a change of them needing to get rid of him, a change of him maybe potentially being inquired by bigger and better teams. Possibility because Icons. Oh yeah, OG. I mean, I saw someone throwing out Nip as well because he's Swedish. Yeah, exactly. I mean, Joel is really talented, man. He's been very good for that Godsent team. Actually, better than probably everyone else on there. And without him, I actually think that Godsent team is really going to struggle.
I agree.
But where he goes
with Golden as well, like that's a weird thing, right? Yeah. Like there's a lot of these teams, of course, that have done really well at the major, and that's probably why what a lot of big organizations are looking at those players that have had like the best tournaments of their career to date. But there are these players like Joel, for example, who has not got there yet, but he's putting up the amazing numbers and is proving to be really good. In Nip's case, I would say maybe you replace Brolin in
the first one that comes to mind for me.
But in terms of OG, I think OG made more sense to me because they've actually got slots available that they're really looking for. Because obviously we spoke about a little bit about it earlier. But at the moment they only really have Gegster and Fiku, and they put Flames up in they put Flames up in limbo basically, where they can say that listen, we can re-sign you, but we're going to let you look for other offers. So yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see who actually OG go for in the end, because they're sort of a weird team where they have some of these partner slots, right, where they can play in these big tournaments, but at the same time. They were sort of last year. They were sort of known as blast merchants, weren't they? Because that was the only thing really keeping their ranking up. So you want to see more from them, and if they have the money to push through to that next level and actually get some stars that get some really good upsets against big teams, this is the time to do it. This is their big rebuild moment. And if they can find some big stars and push forward like the likes of a Joel, maybe another name that's bouncing around the top of the scene, then this is a great opportunity for them. And if that is an expected transfer for OG. It's a must transfer because they don't have enough players for a full team right now. So yeah.
Let's talk about it this way. Who do you guys think need changes? We spoke about OG. We've kind of already deliberated there. Who else do you think needs changes?
So I think C9 need changes. I'm gonna go from top to bottom. I think C9 is probably at the forefront of it because the only reason why I say this, I want to remove Nafany, and I think that now's the perfect time to call the player break and say, look guys, we get a new system in place. And if they want to get Blade on the phone, they get Blade onto this team. And of course, you're suggesting that you get Groove as GM. You get a new IGL, you mold him. You've got two of the smartest CIS coaches in the chamber to help figure that out.
Yeah.
And you get them up to speed. You get Shiro and Axel cooking again, and you start competing for championships. I think that's a very possible one at the top for me.
Yeah, I agree. I think if you can make any change, I think Nafany. I don't actually inherently think Buster's like terrible. I know a lot of people like to shit on him because he's a noob.
I don't think he is good, but I'd like to make Nafany as a.
I don't think he's the priority. In my eyes, I think I'd like to see him under a new kind of tutorage before we start kind of calling for his head. I think the first change for me for Cloud9 is always going to be the coach. I think as much as Nafany is a problem, I still think their whole system's a bit weird. And I'd like to see someone like Blade come in. Especially Blade is rumored to be leaving Na'Vi. There's literally no other perfect. This is the perfect time to pick up
I
one
wanted
of
Hooch. But before all that
But he's
collapse,
so,
I really wanted Hooch.
he's so married to that 1-win roster right now, you know?
Yeah.
I
I would
know.
like it too. I would really like it
Before
too.
he went to 1-win, I'm talking about. Like, I really wanted him as the
yeah,
coach.
yeah.
Like,
No, that could have worked.
that was an opportunity that I thought Cloud9 shouldn't have passed up. But
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree.
unfortunately, that's the way it goes. But if Blade is truly going to be available, then it has to be a must snap up. I completely agree.
Yeah, give him a blank checkbook and be like, just sign it. We want you. We need you. Going for down G2. I don't think they need a change. I think if they need a change, anything needs a coach. I think just obviously it's all well and good, you know, not messing up the interpersonal things within the team, but just having another added depth of kind of strategical side, I think is really important. So if anything was going to happen, that'd be that. But I don't
Or
think.
just get a hype man, dude. Like, just,
Yeah.
just get a really hype
Getting a
player.
Dren-esque coach. Yeah.
No, a Dren is definitely not one of those.
Game Legion, of course, they don't need them, but I think the only time a Game Legion would need them is if their stars get poached, which is a very
likely.
Very likely. Shuhei and Ima are probably the first two on the chopping block immediately. I actually think even teams look at A-Core, especially with so many AWPers being so fraudulent right now. You know, Miles is all, Torsi not looking that good, Nikodol's not looking that good. You know, LZ...
I just want to say, Mouse, I agree with the AWPer thing, but it's Dexter.
It's Dexter. Dexter's the problem.
Style that doesn't make AWPers look good. We spoke about this, didn't we? We had a chat about this ourselves. Like, Torji was so incredible in Mouse NXT, then he sort of goes into Mouse, and the style with Dexter does not work for AWPers. It does not make the AWPers shine. So if you're going to try and give
Dexter's
Mouse
bad
a
with
change,
AWPers, just in general.
Yeah. If you're gonna give Mouse a change, then I would say get rid of Dexter. See if you can activate Torji better. If that's not the case, go for someone else and see what you can do.
Yeah, well, they realistically, Miles would be so good with a player like Shuhei. If only they didn't fucking let him go.
Yeah, I wonder how Mouse NXT won so many titles. It's so obvious.
Who
it's
knows?
so obvious.
Yeah, it's so obvious that the IGL, who literally was the star of that show, did it.
Yeah, it is just an abhorrent decision from
one of the worst business decisions I think I've seen in the last couple of years. Letting Shuhei go for free, I think as well, right? I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, it didn't feel like they even.
I don't think they put much on fight.
Spend any money, yeah.
Yeah.
Which is just crazy to me. But I mean, they can right their wrongs. I mean, he's obviously an option. You can try to get down on your hands and knees and beg for him.
I don't think he goes. He'll have everybody looking at him. He'll have FaZe, G2, all of the big shots will be looking at him. I don't think he gives a shit about Miles anymore. Especially not a team who are barely scraping by a top 20 team. They're a fraudulent top 20 team as well at the moment. So, speaking of, I think they need to change. I think they've got problems left, right, and center. I think if I'm in charge of that team, I'm just the only player who's secure is Frozen. That's it. Everybody else is.
And Xerxes.
Oh, it's like Xerxes, yeah. Frozen and Xerxes. Yeah. Everybody else is next on the line there. JDC, most definitely. He, as much as people like to sing praise about him, I think he is fraudulent at times.
His B-side Mirage holds. Ooh.
Lord haveth mercy. Torsi, not yet. Just because I want to see him under another IGL. Because I think now we've seen back-to-back. The second A-Core leaves Dexter's tutorage, he's instantly amazing again. I think that for me is enough to warrant Torsi having another IGL. But I think Dexter's got to be the first to go. I think he's the problem. Also, I said this before months ago when we did another one of these podcasts. I still don't back Cyclone. I still don't trust him.
I don't either.
His only experience is with NXT, and he didn't even pick the best part of NXT to come into the main team. The first person they promoted was JDC, or granted as a sub first, but then they kind of became the cemented part of the roster. I mean, that alone to me says a lot because JDC wasn't
over NBK.
Yeah, he wasn't what made NXT good even remotely. So the two best players were one of them didn't even get promoted, and Shuhei, and the other one being the AWPer was the last to go up. So, for me, I don't really back Cyclone. I think again, there's another one where a coach change would be a big thing for me. Question being, of course, who? I mean, what's his name? X-Styles just did a post saying he wants to get back into coaching business. There's one case right there. Malik's doing fuck all at EG. Get him out of that shithole, and then get him to actually a good team. He's competent. As much as he had all that beef with Stewie. Who cares?
Who cares?
I think Malik's got he's done enough to earn my respect. Through his coaches.
You look at some of the G2 rosters that he had to run with before, and they were ugly, and he still made them work. He made them look competent. Yeah. So I think he's got a lot left in the tank.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's one for you.
Go on.
Who are you getting for VP's 5th? Still not found out yet.
I had an answer.
I had an answer for this as well, and I haven't thought about VP for so long, and now you just clouded my
Exactly.
head.
I just saw it because I was looking at the rankings.
Now
right? I
just
was like, okay,
ruined
so
my
we found
mood.
Mouse, we found OG. Who the fuck did VP get?
Just absolutely ruined my mood. I think of VP. VP. Who did I have for this? I had a really good answer for this as well. I had a couple of really good suggestions.
I know that I didn't want Inter. I know that was one that I was like, I don't want this player on this team because I
Yeah.
don't think it would work.
I think they need an entry still.
Yeah. Oh, I was thinking of Patsy. Yeah, you're right. Okay, that is the player.
Yeah. It was some Spirit
so-
Boys. Yeah.
The reason why is because I think that you want to get that Yekindar magic back. You've got a perfect idea in using Patsy in that same exact way. Elevate Yekindar or Patsy into Yekindar status because Yekindar clearly hasn't looked as indomitable as he was on VP on Liquid. And granted, there's more egos to play with. There's other players that you got to give roles to. But at the end of the day, Yekindar can't do the same thing that he was able to do regularly. I think the only map that I can think of off the top of my head at the major where he was able to do that was against Na'Vi. And of course, it's Na'Vi. We saw how flimsy they were at this major. So I think that Patsy could really work.
He's sick. Patsy's sick. I like he's what 19 and he's like been tier 1 for a good couple of years now. He is fucking cracked. Like I think he'd be fine. I agree with that massively. And that might even be one of the ones I was thinking about. I think I think we had this conversation kind of off podcast and said similar things. But no, agreed. I think Patsy is really good. I also saw all the rumors about Spirit going through myriad of changes. There's no better time, right? I think especially with how bad their major run was. We can talk about them. They're another team who do need changes, I think. Obviously, they've got the benefit of having the best academy team in the world by an absolute long shot.
In the final of ECL.
In the final of ECL, who are one game away from Pro League, over the main team, which is even funnier. This is a Mouse NXT Mouse thing, once again. So Spirit Academy are unbelievable. You've got Art Frost, which is one of the best tier 2 openers we've got in the scene right now. You've got Donk, which is a 16-year-old rifler, who's one of the best in the scene as well in tier 2
Winning
right
FPL
now.
regularly.
Yeah, and winning FPL as well, which is even crazier because FPL is a shit show. When you look at some of I've watched some of those games, right? You watch some people stream them, and it's like comms are all over the place. It's chaos. People just don't know each other. Mixed roles, and he's winning it. The kid's a grinder. I think he's so talented. And then also Zontix as well. Zontix is fucking sick. They've got 3 guys who immediately are at least tier 1 level in terms of taking a gamble, is how I put it. Under a leader like Chopper, who knows, man?
I will say props to Sotfik, by the way. Sotfik has tons and tons of experience. He was on the original Spirit roster quite a long time. If I'm not mistaken,
28,
as well.
right? He's pretty old, right?
He's quite old, but he's the one leading that team. And honestly, I think a lot of praise deserves to go toward him too for showing these incredible players and what we're going to see in the future. Because as you say, I had a chat the other day, a very brief chat on Twitter with I believe it was Michał, is that his name? Who were talking about about how what Spirit could do if they were going to pick up the team. So basically, it's as we kind of suspected, right?
Yeah.
If Spirit Academy win the ECL Season 45 final, Spirit can't just say, okay, we're taking the core and we're calling us Spirit. Like, if Spirit want to use all 3, like Zontix, Donk, and Art Frost, they're going to have to play as Spirit Academy in Pro League with like Chopper or Wonderful or Chopper and Magix or something, right?
Interesting.
Wouldn't be Wonderful
if
now,
Spirit wants
right?
to play...
Art Frost is good enough. Like, I don't think they need Wonderful.
Yeah. And I don't think that means that Spirit can't necessarily take it and use it and just call themselves just Spirit, even though it's the same organization. I'm pretty sure they'd have to call themselves Spirit Academy, and it would have to be
which makes sense in my eyes because it wasn't Spirit who qualified.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's how it should be. I think there was like a review that Michał said. I think it's activate some sort of review. I'll read it out right now. Spirit Academy could simply drop out if they wanted to, but the slot would go to the world ranking, and there's no guarantee Spirit main roster would be invited. Very unlikely. They're ranked 35. Spirit wouldn't be able to just put in the main roster instead. Anytime there was a majority roster change, it triggers the license review process, so there are no guarantees they keep the slot. So they could maybe gamble a license with you, but you probably wouldn't do that with
I don't think they
such
get
a
it.
wonderful opportunity, would you? So
Also,
yeah.
what's the point? It's still the organization, right? I think the priority is having the org there. Doesn't matter like, what players are representing, just having the org at Pro League. So I don't think they take a risk. I think they'd make 2 changes, and then just hope, right, and see if they can get it.
Make the 2 changes. Call Spirit Academy.
Yeah.
Like you can still be called Spirit Academy, but
Exactly.
just use Chopper and Magix or Chopper and Wonderful or something.
I think it'd be Chopper and Magix if I had to make a guess, because I don't think they bring in Wonderful, just because Art Frost is actually unbelievably talented in his own right. I don't think Wonderful's good enough to warrant booting Art Frost from this place. Art Frost has been the staple big name for a long time. No, I know Donk gets like the highlights, but stats wise, it has been Art Frost for a long time. I remember in the last 2 seasons that we played when I did it was only Art Frost. I didn't even know of Donk. Donk was not someone who was on my radar. It was all Art Frost. So I mean that for me says a lot. He's a guy who kind of went toe to toe with the likes of kind of Manesi and whatnot, and Torzi and was absolutely fine. So I think it was sick. It'd be cool to see them go towards Pro League. I think that'd be a cool little story.
Gonna win the final though, and that'll be either against one of Monty or Apex, right?
They've got a map advantage as well because it's best of 5. So
yeah,
they'll be all right. I'm sure they'll be all right. I'm sure. Further down the list, Liquid, of course, we've kind of already spoken about them. Apex, Monty, I'm sure they're fine. Ents are fine as well. Fury, I've been spoken about them. NIP, we've kind of spoken of them as already, so we can move on. Same with Fnatic. Into the Breach, I think they will get poached. I would be very surprised if a side like 9 aren't looking at Rollen. I'd be very surprised if every team under the fucking sun isn't looking at Cypher. But also, I think teams should look at Volt. I think Volt is very underrated. All the limelight was over towards Cypher. Rightfully so. I think he was unbelievable. But Volt is a brilliant rifle in his own regard. He did it in We Play Academy League with Fnatic Rising. He's been top level for a while. I think Volt is someone who could, not saying he would drop into a top 15 team, but we look at teams who maybe need a change here or there, or a fresh lease of life. A side like Mouse or an OG having a super stable rifler like Volt, I don't think that's bad. Yeah, and also he can play like every role as well, which is kind of the sick thing. In Fnatic Rising and Into Breach, plays completely different roles. So for me, I think those 3 would be on a lot. Well, mainly Cypher and Rollen. I think they've been on a lot of people's lists.
Agreed. Yeah, I think it's going to be very hard for a squad like ITB as well, or an organization like ITB to say no, I want to keep you. Like, it's just not going to happen. Mm-hmm. It's that sort of level of team that when they have these sort of breakout events, they can play for a little bit, and until a player gets a solid offer of an organization that they either like or really think is a great proposition, they're not going to say no. Like, they're going to let them chase the dream, right, and get a bigger paycheck at the end.
Yeah, the owner Sam as well knows all about that, and he's like, there's nothing I can do. Side note as well, just because we were talking about it a little bit earlier, Complexity. Not saying they would do it, but a Volt type player is something Complexity could use. He plays very similar roles to not saying by any means they would do it. That's just like a hypothetical. Like, I think he is a little bit more reliable than Fang. Is how I put it. Further down, Big. I don't think they need any changes. Well, who the fuck are they going to bring? The German scene is minute.
Exactly.
The Academy team is the best team in their Meisterschaft, so it says everything.
I know. It's such a. I was actually looking at Big the other day because Big, obviously, they lost in the final of the Kato Qual, which you're casting to Ecstatic, and they 2-0, and they lost again today to Ecstatic 2-0. Like, the Ecstatic are either their bogey team or Ecstatic are now the new big thing, which is going to upset you very much because you don't think so. But
they need a change. Speaking of it, yeah.
But
we'll get on that guy's case today, but.
But yeah, it's like, I don't know, Big are in such a weird spot. Like, I think they just won against Copenhagen Flames, I believe, in the CCT Online finals. But
it's like, where do they go? Like, who can they pick up?
They've got some partner slots, but at the same time, it's like, it's just so uninspiring. And Tabson's not, like, he's still good, but he's not what he once was anymore. He's IGLing, of course, sometimes on and off. He's the captain of Big and always will be, but that is a wasted career in a nutshell. He could have easily gone to a great team back in the day and become a big winner on the big stage.
He could have been one of the most legendary riflers we've ever had in CS:GO. I think I'd die on that hill if he went international.
Yeah,
I think he could have. But there's no talent in Germany, so who are they going to pick up? I guess we'll stop when we get to 20. But OG, we've kind of actually spoken about OG, but the question of kind of where do they go? Mal's again, same thing. Virtus Pro we just spoke about. and then B in E, same situation as Big got. Who else?
Big,
Who
yeah.
else they pick up? So I guess
We
that is.
mentioned Furia earlier, right? As well. We want
Yeah,
Big
yeah.
Azera. Yeah.
I think if you're Fury, you're looking at Pain,
Or
right? You got
PKL.
Big Azera, but just like how well Zevi and Skull's playing. Also, Safi's doing fine, so they don't need an AWPer. But just those two individually are just such highlight reels, right? Zevi and Skulls. That like, if there ever was a need for an AWPer and a rifler, boom, boom. There's a dynamic duo that you can rely on, and they're super young as well. So
You could make a super team out of Brazil right now, but the tough part about Brazil right now is that they've got some obscene buyout numbers, like just crazy numbers, and it's just because they can. Like no team is going to actually splash the cash unless you're like Fluxo.
the Fluxo have loads of money.
Yeah, they bought
I think
Zeus,
so.
and the buyout for history was like 600K or something crazy like that. Yeah, they're throwing
Who
money
owns
around.
them? Why do they have that much money?
I don't know.
I don't know.
I
I'll look it up right now. Hang on.
I don't think I can ask too many questions.
Life might be on the line. How do they have so much money? I want Neymar to buy stakes in Fury and start just splashing the cash.
Yeah, it'd be fun. Yeah.
If there's one org that you would do that for, it would be Furia,
Yeah.
I think.
Simple Fury is a good ring. Fury is simple. Great ring. Save that man from Navi, please. An absolute sinking ship.
Well, he saved himself from his own haircut though recently. You see his fresh trim. Simple's trim was so good.
Oh, it looks good. And the little tweet.
We're back. He's winning in the next event.
Wait, I want to find my tweet. I was like, GG, it's fucking over. The kid's got a trim. He's back. Like, he's back. The return of the king, man. He looks sharp as fuck. The confidence up. I'm happy. I'm glad to see it.
Let's go.
What did I tweet? I somewhere here. But yeah. Good to see. I hope he can actually it's not just the trim for trim's sake. Hopefully,
a happy Simple and a Simple playing well. We haven't really that's the thing. Just a quick note on Navi and Simple personally from my point of view, just before we move on to kind of the end of the podcast, is that the thing that's upset me about this year so far is we haven't really had a really noteworthy big boy Simple moment. Like there's always at this point of the year you feel like there's been an incredible clutch. Maybe there's been one, right? But there's always one that gets everyone talking.
Yeah.
It really makes you feel amazing about his form and how Navi look. Not at all this year. Not sure if it's just the NPL factor that Navi have looked so poor. It's the fact that Simple's not been on a hard carry form for a good while. Yeah. And that's what Navi always needed, really. So yeah, I hope a trim and a bit of confidence and a bit more of a bit more maybe a change for Navi, maybe the change that we mentioned earlier, like as our little piece about it with NPL and maybe even Blade moving on. If that can happen, CS is in a good place when Simple and Zyru are both at the top of their form. At the moment, it's only one of them.
Yeah, that's it. And I guess not more or less. Are we happy with that? Like all of our points, were easy stuff. I guess we got one more thing. Actually, before we do that, what have we got coming up, lads? We've got just to round out the show. We've got how many months? Like a month and a bit, right? Until the end of the season.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be going to Dallas, so I mean, if you guys are watching this, hopefully we'll have this out.
I'll look for you in the crowd, brother.
It will go out probably tomorrow, probably.
But yeah, if anybody wants to come say hi, definitely just come up and say hi. I don't mind whatsoever. And
he does bite.
The real Dat
Paladin. I do bite. Yeah.
He do bite.
But
what that mouth do?
I'm really excited to attend that LAN. But yeah, I mean, other than that, like once the player break happens, I think I'll have a couple of videos out just before I head to travel. I'll be going to India, and then I'll be coming back to London on the way back. And I guess we can talk about that after you guys all.
So in my case for what's coming up, because of the season, as you say, sort of in a weird spot right now. Like for example, I was asked for like one of the Katowice quals, right? But I believe you were too.
Yeah.
Neo, but we both had to say no to them because we were in Paris for the major, right? So that was sort of a cast that could have happened, but sort of went a begging. But as you say, when it comes to those quals, there isn't really anything properly happening until like August, really, when IEM full sort of ideas start to kick up. So. For me, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my roots a little bit. I'm going to start streaming some advanced playoffs coming in. I think it starts in about 3, 4, 5 days, something like that. I'm going to get myself stuck into advanced playoffs. and I'm gonna have some streams going, and I'm gonna see how that one goes, because obviously it's been a while since I've streamed some qualifiers or some actual proper officials. I want to get back into that again if there's no official cast going, as a bit of a quiet period, of course, as we said. So yeah, that's what I'll be doing. So if you want to say hi on TravCS Twitch account,
there we go.
feel free.
There we go. I guess for me, I've got ESL Prem finals for the UK. That'll be fun.
Who do you think's gonna make it?
I think it'll be Into the Breach Endpoint. I think.
Okay.
As much as it's
But
boring to
ITV
say.
finally win.
I think
What using right now?
Fraser actually, who played.
Okay.
I jumped on for a last minute cast yesterday because I think Sam Namazuki couldn't do it. Like our power went out or something. So I jumped on with Tom Pickering, and it was Endpoint are back. They started terribly to the season, but they are absolutely fine. They played against Viperia, who at the point were 9-0. They yet to lose a best of one, and they massacred them. So Endpoint are back. I'm sure they'll make a deep run. I'd be very surprised if it isn't. I think they're on opposite sides as well, so I think it should be ITB Endpoint, if I'm right in saying. Okay. And I think Endpoint, after the opening game, they play against Coalesce in the semi-finals, which is a very good game as well, actually. That'll be very fun. I'm doing both the semis and the finals. So it should be good. It should be Coalesce Endpoint, which should be really good. And then ITB will play maybe Arctic Raptors, I think, who are also pretty damn decent. But yeah, should be fun. Should be enjoyable. And then aside from that, I'm doing ESL Challenger Hanover now. No longer called... Oh, no. ESL Challenger Cato, may I say. It was Hanover. They got cancelled. It was meant to be Hanover. Now it's Cato. But we're doing it from the studio in Stockholm anyway. And it's actually for the first time for ESL, I'll be in-person casting. I've always been on the desk. I've done Melbourne twice, which I guess is something I've done since we've last been on the podcast. I did the RMR and then Melbourne on the desk. But yeah, we'll be doing Challenger Cato casting with Scriv. The rest of the talent's not announced, and also I don't really know the rest of the talent. So we'll probably get to that whenever it's out. But yeah, should be good. Should be really fun. But I guess that's probably good timing for us to somewhat announce that as of July, sometime between the 30th and 20th, mid-July, basically. We'll get a locked-in date close to the time. You'll see it on Twitter. But myself, Paladin, and Trav will be doing one of these 2.5 talent in person. We'll be doing it probably from Travis's house, most likely.
I've to sort it out somehow. I don't know how or where, but we'll figure it out.
Paladin is going to be coming from so you're going to America to see your family in India, and on the way back, stopping by the UK for a week. So we get to do one of these in person, which will be good fun.
We don't have the HLTV money to book out a venue. And no special guests, but it will be us.
It'll be like in a kitchen in like an Airbnb or something. But even funnier, get a couple of pints in while we're doing it. The good times, the good times. A couple of G&Ts for Annie. But yeah, we're gonna do one of these in person. Should be good fun. We'll have everything locked in. Closer to the time, like at least we'll give it trying to give at least 2 weeks notice. We're gonna try and get everything booked. Well, probably should do it ASAP, but we'll have an actual.
We'll be doing it after this call, so.
Yeah, exactly. So we're gonna have all the dates and stuff locked in. You'll see it all on Twitter. It's gonna be a good fucking laugh. So
we're playing table tennis. We're playing badminton. I'm gonna own both of you. It's gonna be beautiful.
I don't think that's gonna be happening.
I don't think that necessarily is gonna happen, but yeah, it's gonna be good fun. So yeah, I guess for that one we are done though, lads. It's been a pleasure. It's been a long time since we did one of these. Of course, Annie, enjoy Dallas. That sounds very fun. I'm actually quite jealous. That looks like a good event.
Oh, come on. You have to play us. Come on.
Hey, those NA events look good. Of course, as per, check out the socials you see below our head. If you're watching YouTube, go and check out the Twitch as well, because we always now stream these as well. Travis has got his hand up. You got something to say?
One thing. Just want to say, sorry for my voice being shit. I've still got a bit of post-Paris sickness. I'm sorry for having to eat. My blood sugar was low. That's my final moment. Thank you, guys.
Trav would die. He would die. Either way, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure. We'll be back at some point, probably post-Cato, probably player break, to be perfectly honest, or actually maybe the in-person episode might be our next one. We just bulk it all up in one, have a nice long one, do a sit down, food and drinks while doing an episode. It'll be good times. Either way, we're gonna throw this one. Thank you for joining us. It's been a pleasure. Paladin, Trav, for joining me as per usual. All you wonderful people at home, appreciate it. We'll see you all very, very soon. Peace out.